Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Is that a faucet running? That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink.
What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up the air we breathe.
I didn't know the trees were so amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear, because for 75 years, he's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So be careful out there. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Get ready, because here comes Generals Game Day on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington.
This is Generals Game Day. Hi, hello, and welcome to the broadcast. Alongside Jim Plantholt, I am Andy McEnroe. Washington and Lee returns to action this week after falling to Bridgewater last week during homecoming by the score of 31-14. More on that game in just a moment. Today, the Generals travel across I-64 to square off against the Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets. The Yellow Jackets are 6-1 overall, 5-0 in the conference, tied for first with the aforementioned Bridgewater Eagles. We'll talk about the Yellow Jackets here in a moment, but as I welcome in my colleague Jim Plantholt, Jim, Washington and Lee really did not get going last week, and it was a factor of Bridgewater's defense deciding that they were going to play the Generals straight up, as opposed to crowding the line of scrimmage like many opponents have done this season. They said, you've got a dynamic quarterback in Jack Pollard, which the Generals do have. You've got a great running back in Josh Brees. But we think the big play is all that's been the differentiating factor this year for the Generals, and we will take the big play away by playing 4 down linemen and forcing Washington and Lee to make plays with their running game. Jack Pollard had by far his worst game this season at quarterback for the Generals, just 2 of 13 throwing for 45 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and the big play was absent, with the exception of a 38-yard touchdown pass to Montgomery Owen and a very nice 56-yard run by Jack Pollard. But that was it for the Generals on offense. And the Generals on defense, well, they could not slow down Jay Scroggins for Bridgewater. He was 28 of 39 for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he spread the ball around very effectively. Trey Stevens with 5 catches, Devontae Smith with 5 catches and a touchdown. Grant Munson, the tight end, with 4 catches for 42 yards as well. If you're in the Washington and Lee locker room, now no longer playing for a conference title, Jim, how do you refocus and try to play the role of spoiler today against Randolph-Macon?
Well, as every week, I mean, you go for the W. And just a note on last week, I mean, it really goes to show you keep mentioning those big plays, and that's what Bridgewater was able to do. They used a stacked defense to limit Washington and Lee to under 200 yards of total offense, just 64 yards in the second half. And it really came down to what has benefited the Generals in all the years in the last 10 years is time of possession, the way that they've been able to handle the clock. Bridgewater controlled the ball for 22, almost 23 minutes in the first half of that opening half hour there. Just an incredible job by the Bridgewater defense, playing straight-up defense, taking away those big play offense, big offensive plays by W&L. W&L has produced 17 plays of 30 or more yards in the last 5 games. It really took all of that away, as you said, Andy, and that has really killed the momentum for this Generals offense. As they look to play spoiler, they really need to change the way that they are able to adapt to the defense lining up across from them, because you can bet that Randolph-Macon is watching the tapes of last week and knowing what Bridgewater did to stifle that Generals offense and that high-powered weapons that they have. This Generals team is going to have to find a way to make a balanced defense overcommit, and that's what you really get with what has happened against the Generals in most cases, whether they the defensive backfield crowds the line, they bring everyone up so it leaves something over the top where they overcommit to one side or the other. You make one move and you get big plays out of it. But what Bridgewater was able to do was stay balanced, stay back, and allow just some great players on the defensive side of the ball to limit what the Generals offense was able to do. Just 16 plays in the first half, Andy, and you can't say enough about what Bridgewater was able to do.
Now, Bridgewater did a great job on defense, and for Washington and Lee, as you mentioned, they have to bounce back today. And from my opinion, it really starts with getting back to their base running game. The Generals have had great success running out of empty and throwing out of their empty set over the past few weeks, but it seems like defenses are adjusting to it. If you're Randolph-Macon, you've certainly watched the tape of last week's contest. And for the Generals today, another tough test. As we mentioned at the opening, Randolph-Macon is 6-1, 5-0 in the conference. They are tied for first place in the ODAC standings with Bridgewater. Washington and Lee, if you're wondering, currently 4-3 overall, 3-2 in the ODAC, sitting currently in fourth place behind Bridgewater, Randolph-Macon, and Emory and Henry. And so for the Generals to play the role of spoiler, it's going to require them to start the running game early and often. And as we've said all year, it starts with Josh Brees. He's certainly had a disappointing season, not up to the standards of years past, only averaging 4.7 yards per carry, just 4 touchdowns on the season. But if Josh Brees can establish that inside zone, if the Generals go back to their base running game, you've got to think that Randolph-Macon will have to continue to put points up at the pace they've been doing thus far, with wins like against Southern Virginia by the score of 47-27. The week before that against Shenandoah, 35-14. And prior to that on the road at Guilford on October 5th by the score of 34-21. They're a very good team. They are averaging 382.1 yards per game on offense, 213 of those yards on the ground, another 169 yards through the air, averaging just under 30 points per game and limiting opponents to just 19 points per game. And they're led by their running back, Trey Frederick, who's averaging 5.1 yards per carry. He's done a great job on the ground, averaging 97.4 yards per game. They feed Trey Frederick early and often, And it's really because they've made a switch at quarterback this year. Randolph-Macon started the season with Burke Estes as the starter. The last few games, Presley Egbers has taken over, the first-year quarterback. He's completing just under 63% of his passes, 6 touchdowns on the season to just 3 interceptions, and has thrown for 605 yards.
Yeah, Andy, this is a Randolph-Macon team that likes to control the ball. They have a high-powered offense, but going back a couple years, they love to control the ball, just like a WNL team did in the past. If WNL comes out a little bit flat like they did last week, they're going to struggle. Last year, Randolph-Macon controlled the ball for just over 23 minutes in the final half for that victory over WNL. The Generals are going to look to get some redemption over that loss, but it's going to come down to how they can control the ball on the offensive side. Is the defense going to stand up? And, we have some questions on the Generals defense for such a high-powered offense that the Randolph-Macon can produce. But I think you're right. It does come down to how is Josh Brees going to return to some good yardage against this Randolph-Macon defense. And it's going to be how are they able to see what they did last week and respond to it? It's the old saying, it's not about how many times you get knocked down, but it's about how many times you get back up. And how much are they going to be able to respond and really control some of that clock, not allow this Randolph-Macon team to do what Bridgewater did against them and control the ball for so much of each half.
Well, let's talk defense. The Generals allow an ODAC low 70 rushing yards per game, which also ranks them 15th nationally. WNL also has claimed 22 sacks, a total which ranks them second in the ODAC, just 1 sack shy of Bridgewater's 23. WNL has held 5 of its last 6 opponents to 87 rushing yards or less. The lone exception was surrendering 172 yards to Emory and Henry back on October 19th. WNL has also forced 17 turnovers, so if there's a defense that can step up, it can be Washington and Lee's here today against Randolph-Macon, and they, of course, will be led by Will Corey on defense. He missed the first half of last week's game due to a targeting call at the end of the Emory and Henry contest. He's the leading tackler for the Generals, 39 tackles on the season, 6.5 tackles for a loss of 32 yards. He also has 2.5 sacks this year. As Will Corey goes, with his energy, the Generals' defense goes.
Absolutely, Andy. This Generals defense, I think, can stand up to the challenge. As you said, they're having a fantastic season with the pressure on the quarterback, 22 sacks for the Generals, which ranks second in the ODAC, just behind Bridgewater. They're going to put the pressure on this Randolph-Macon offense, and that's what they need to do. When you're going to get the pressure on the quarterback, it forces bad decisions, quick decisions on the quarterback, and just it forces the offense to move faster than they generally want to. So you're going to see some fantastic defensive play, but are they going to be able to withstand the amount of time that they're going to be on the field? That's my only question for this Generals defense. And when you're on the field, last week you're 22 plus minutes and a half, you get fatigued. You can be the best seasoned defense in the league, but you're going to get fatigued if you're on the field that often.
Well, this is a rivalry game. Randolph-Macon, the reigning ODAC champions, looking to continue their march for another crown, but they have to go through Washington and Lee today in Ashland, Virginia. It's the 68th meeting of these two teams, with the series tied at 32-32, with 3 ties factored in there as well. Washington and Lee has won 6 of the last 9 meetings, but as Jim mentioned earlier, dropped a 23-7 decision last season in Lexington. The last time this game was in Ashland, Washington and Lee won 17-14. More on this contest coming up in just a few minutes. We'll hear from Matt Stavish in the Coach's Clicker and have him break down what Washington and Lee needs to do to be successful. Plus, we'll get Jim's player to watch and his prediction. But for now, we pivot away from Washington and Lee football and to national sports headlines. And of course, the big story this week, Jim, the Washington Nationals win their first World Series, the first World Series victory for a team from Washington since the 1920s. What did Washington do to be successful against the Houston Astros?
Well, I think they, to boil it down, they won more games on the road. And that was the story of this World Series, wasn't it, Andy? Is road wins. It is the first time in any major sport championship, MLB, NBA, NHL, 7-game series, that the road team has won every game. And if you listen to any of the major pundits before Game 7, there was no way that Houston was going to lose a unprecedented fourth game in a row at home. But Washington was able to do it, and they did it in a style that they played the entire series and really the entire playoffs. And they played the underdog. They got down early, had a couple huge hits. And telling you, as a former D.C. resident and resident of a city with the Nationals AAA team, I felt a little magic coming on with the Nationals. It was a fantastic series overall. I think we saw incredible pitching, incredible timely hitting. We saw the long ball, and everyone knows that the Chicks dig the long ball. So we saw it all this World Series, and I think it's something that baseball needed. As a unwavering baseball fan, I had an immense amount of fun watching this entire series. And the Nationals, I mean, you had an incredible pitching staff. You had an incredible lineup, but you did have the oldest Major League Baseball team on average this year. But you had the young guns that really, really carried a lot of it. I mean, how anyone with young kids out there, how could you not like Juan Soto and Baby Shark? You know, any early game really frustrated me just when he would come up to bat, and all of a sudden, you know, my son at home just got an extra wave of energy towards bedtime with hearing Baby Shark come on when he would come up to bat. Well, despite Baby Shark, I think what was so amazing for me about the 2019 World Series is the fact that Washington rode 6 pitchers to victory throughout the postseason. Their 4 starting pitchers being Strasburg, Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, and Patrick Corbin, and really just 2 relievers in Hudson and Doolittle, and didn't trust anyone else with the ball, which reminded me of something that Jeff Stickley, former head baseball coach at Washington and Lee and current slot backs coach for the Washington and Lee Generals football team, would say, as long as you get to the tournament, anything can happen. And that certainly proved true here for the Washington Nationals. They start the season 19-31. They battle back all year. They make it to the wild card game, and they have come from behind victories in the wild card game, in the NLDS. They sweep through the NLCS and then battle back in both Game 6 and 7 in Houston to walk away as the world champions. It's true, folks. When you get into the tournament, when you get into the dance, anything can happen. Now, the challenge for the Nationals, as Jim noted, they're one of the older teams in Major League Baseball. They also have several key free agents. Anthony Rendon, their starting third baseman, will be a free agent. Steven Strasburg has the option to opt out today during the Washington Nationals parade. Those will be high-cost players for the Nationals to try to retain, and I don't know if they can retain both of them. And so repeating becomes very challenging for a team in that state. But, Jim, if you were to look into your crystal ball, I know it's a long way away, who do you think wins next year's World Series? Next year World Series, as much as it pains me, God, I think I might have to put the Yankees up there as one of the front runners. All right, folks, you heard it here first. Jim, the noted Orioles fan, is going with the Yankees in 2020. Are the Orioles even a Major League team anymore? I think they've been relegated to AAA. Back to Washington and Lee sports now, where we're going to do a quick run-through. We'll call it the Washington and Lee swing of what's going on in the world of WNL sports. We start with winter sports, where the ODAC women's and men's basketball polls have been released. Washington and Lee on the women's side predicted to finish second with 127 points behind Guilford College, who had 7 first-place votes, for a total of 130
9 points. Washington and Lee welcomes back several key players from last season, including guard Taylor Casey, who was first team, guard Aaron Hughes, who was on the second team All-ODAC selection and was the league's first ODAC Defensive Player of the Year award winner, and forward Andy Smithy, who was an All-ODAC third team selection. The men's basketball team predicted to finish 5th in the ODAC preseason poll with a total of 97 points. Guilford College received 6 first-place votes, and Virginia Wesleyan came in second in the poll with 4 first-place votes. Back to the fall season, where there's a lot going on today. At 1 p.m., women's field hockey is in action. They're taking on Bridgewater at home at the W&L Turf Field. For the Generals on the field hockey field, they are currently sitting in third place, a conference mark of 5-2, 8-7 overall heading into ODAC conference tournament play. Lynchburg is a perfect 8-0 in field hockey in the conference. Shenandoah is 6-1. To men's soccer we go, where the Generals lead the pack, or I should say are in second place in the pack, with a record of 6-1-1 in the conference, 12-2-3 overall, as they get set for ODAC tournament play tomorrow at 2 p.m. in Lexington. They'll square off against Virginia Wesleyan. Virginia Wesleyan comes in with a conference mark of 4-4, 7-10 overall. Women's soccer with a game today at 1 p.m. at Bridgewater, as the Generals look to continue their dominance. The women's soccer team, a perfect 15-0 with 2 ties, 8-0-1 in the conference. They've also won 3 in a row. Their conference tournament gets underway with first-round action on November 4th, quarterfinals on Wednesday, November 6th. And we finish out our W&L swing with women's volleyball. The Generals were in action yesterday. They fell to the number 9 team in the country, Barry, by the score of 3-0. Despite losing the first 3 sets by just a combined 9 points, the Generals did fall at Emory's national invitation to Barry, 25-21, 25-23, 25-22. The women's volleyball team in action today, squaring off against Birmingham Southern and Emory at 3 p.m. ODAC quarterfinal action for the women's volleyball tournament gets underway on November 6th. The semifinals and championship are next Friday and Saturday, November 8th and November 9th. And that's your quick W&L swing. It's now time we sprint from the broadcast studio into the kitchen for tailgating with Jim Plantholt.
Andy, just one quick thing about women's the W&L women's basketball season coming up. W&L women's basketball has a soft spot in our hearts, and I think a lot. This is going to be an exciting season. I think a lot of that goes to an article quickly by ABC 13 News out of Salem that has. Their headline is Guilford tops ODAC women's basketball preseason poll, but the entire first paragraph is all about Washington and Lee coming, ranking second preseason, but really diving into the Generals first off. And I think that goes to show that this Generals team, whether they're first in the preseason polls or not, are absolutely going to be the strength coming out of this ODAC women's basketball. It's going to be a fun season. For those ladies, you got to get out and catch a few games, returning all 5 starters for the Generals this year. But going into the kitchen, pivoting to the burners here, preheating my oven. Andy, I got 2 easy recipes for you today. Coming off of Halloween week, going into the weekend, everyone's busy. You got kids trick-or-treating. You got football going on. You have the mix of getting towards the second half of the fall sports and preseason workouts for winter sports. You're going to have a couple things that are easy to travel. We have 2 finger foods for you this weekend. The first is a classic Pigs in the Blanket. I know it sounds pretty easy, but you have to do it right. The second one, we get a little adventurous. We're going to kick it up a little bit with a little heat, and we have some sausage stuffed cherry peppers for you. But first, those classic Pigs in a Blanket. All you need for this one is a tube of the refrigerated crescent rolls, 8 hot dogs, and 1 egg, a little bit of water, about 1 tablespoon, and some sesame seeds if you really want to kick it up just a little bit. Preheat that oven to 375. You're going to keep it at 375 degrees for the entire show here. Next step, you're going to want to separate the crescent rolls into the individual triangles. Be careful when you're popping those rolls because they can be pretty tricky. Roll it out. You're going to see most of it's preheated. Pillsbury does a fantastic job. Not preheated, sorry. It's going to be pre-cut into those triangles. Pillsbury does a fantastic job of laying that out for you. After you have that separated, you want to place a hot dog at the wide end of each of those triangles and then just gently roll it up. It's as easy as that. Place each one of those rolls on an ungreased baking sheet separately in a small bowl. You want to combine that egg, scramble it, and the 1 tablespoon of water. Brush that gently over the top of your pigs in the blanket. Sprinkle a little bit of sesame seeds on top and press lightly into the rolls. That's going to give your pigs in a blanket a beautiful golden color once they're cooked and a little bit of nice taste on top. Bake them 12 to 15 minutes or until they are golden brown. The second recipe, your Italian sausage stuffed cherry peppers. You're going to get a little bit of heat from the cherry peppers, some of that meaty taste from the sausage, great fennel taste coming from an Italian sausage, and they're easy to hold in one hand. I know we're going back to week 1 when we had a lot of the lawn games, your ladder golf and your cornhole. You're going to want these around for those games as well. All you need for this one is a half pound of Italian sausage and then 1 to 2 dozen of cherry peppers and then just 2 tablespoons of olive oil. The oven you're going to want to keep at 375 degrees. That's why I say you want to keep it at that the entire time here. So you can actually bake these cherry peppers at the same time you're baking your pigs in a blanket. You want to keep an eye on the timing so that they both come out at the same time. That way you can serve both warm at the same time, or if you're looking at staggering your appetizers, you can do that as well. With this, you want to line a baking dish with aluminum foil. My favorite baking dish, I have a couple Pyrex baking dishes with a 1 to 2 inch lip on the side. They're fantastic. We're doing anything from lasagna to these individual cherry peppers. Just fantastic, very versatile dish. Get your Pyrex at your local store. Then you want to cut the tops off of each of your cherry peppers. Remove the seeds from the inside so that you get a little bit less heat. Because this is not about the heat here. You want the taste of the cherry pepper without burning your mouth off. Stuff each pepper with about a half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon of the uncooked sausage. And all you gotta do is place the peppers on the baking dishes, drizzle it with that olive oil so that everything is entirely covered. Bake it for 20 minutes. Let it cool slightly before you're serving so that you can pick it up by hand. And there are 2 fantastic, easy to make, not very many ingredients for some finger foods for your tailgate.
Jim, you never disappoint. That sounds delicious, and I am ready for my tailgate. We are closing in on kickoff between Washington and Lee and Randolph-Macon. The Generals 4-3, 3-2 in the conference. Randolph-Macon 6-1, 5-0 in the conference. But before we go any further, we've got to hear from our coach, Matt Stavish, with the Coach's Clicker.
Good afternoon, Generals fans. Matt Stavish with the Coach's Clicker. The Generals dropped a disappointing game to Bridgewater last weekend. And Bridgewater, of all the teams in the last month and a half, has had the most success in slowing down the Generals' potent offense, which still ranks in the Division III top 25 and the top ranking offense in the ODAC. So let's look at what Bridgewater did, because it was the first team that defended W&L significantly differently than the other previous opponents. The Generals' offense really took off at the beginning of this year when they started to go to their empty formation. with a tight end and a slot back, and then the other side, slot back and 2 wide receivers. Most teams have been playing WNL with a 5- and 6-man defensive front, so when they put them into the empty formation, it created an issue because they had 5 vertical threats, and the Generals could run speed option to either side. However, Bridgewater played WNL much differently, and this caused some issues for the Generals in this football game. So let's look at a play from the first half. The Generals have the ball on the Bridgewater 40-yard line, and it is a one-score football game. The Generals come out in an empty formation with a tight end in slot to the offensive right and a slot and 2 receivers to the offensive left. Bridgewater shows 4 defensive linemen. They show a bare front, which is a head up on the center, and 2 defensive tackles in the B-gap, and an outside linebacker to the tight end. Looking at the Bridgewater secondary is where it's much different. They have 4 players deeper than 10 yards. They have a corner sitting at 10 yards on top of the Generals' 3 receiver side, a safety sitting at 15 yards deep, a safety to the weak side at 12 yards deep, and a corner sitting outside 3x3. They're going to be dropping 7 defenders and playing soft zone coverage, and it turns into a cover 3 or cover 4, however you look at it, quarters across. But what this does, playing this deep quarters coverage against the Generals empty, is it's taking away their downfield big play action threats. The goal of Bridgewater was to eliminate Montgomery Owen from the game plan. If you look at some of the Generals' base offensive sets that aren't empty formation, this is also evident on the Bridgewater mindset going into the game. And this is probably the first time in years that a defense is schemed to try and take out a Generals wide receiver. If we look at a base set from earlier in the game, where the Generals have a tight end and slot back to the boundary and a slot and a tight end and Montgomery Owen to the field, Bridgewater allows their outside linebacker to play 3x3 off the slot, so he can be in the 3-step window to Montgomery Owen. The Bridgewater game plan was clearly this: don't give up the big play to Montgomery Owen, don't give up the big play to the Generals, and make them drive the ball down the field. This is the first game where we saw a lot of success from the Generals inside run game, but it's also the first time in the year the Generals have seen a defensive front play them with effectively 4 defensive linemen and a deep Mike linebacker. This was a marked change from how they've been previously defended and put the onus on the offensive line. The Generals have big play perimeter receivers in Montgomery Owen and in the slot back Kirkland, and with Jack Pollard's throwing ability, this was clearly their mindset going into the game. This is exactly how the Generals' defense plays people. They play them to keep the ball in front and to make them make long drives down the field. This just so happens to be the exact way that Bridgewater likes to play football. So WNL was in the game, but Bridgewater came out with a great defensive plan to limit WNL's big plays. They're leading Division III, or the ODAC, in big plays, and they were not going to get beat by the big play. The Generals got 2 big plays early in the game, but they did not give up. As the game developed, WNL had trouble getting players open in their empty set and made WNL into a true passing offense. Unfortunately, they're not a passing offense, and that's not how this team is built. The pass is complementary to run, and when they took away both with their front 7 and the soft coverage, it created a lot of issues for the defense. Look for Randolph-Macon, who also has a strong defensive line and a good defensive scheme and personnel to potentially copy this. The Generals are going to have to come back with more inside run in the Randolph-Macon game.
Thank you, Matt, for that great analysis. It's now time for Jim Plantholt to tell you who will win today's matchup between the Generals and the Yellow Jackets and who he's got his eye on as the player to watch.
Well, Andy, I think this week is all going to come down to time of possession. It's what the Generals struggled with last week. It's what they struggled with a year ago against Randolph-Macon. The last time out against them. So being a big guy myself, I think a lot of the emphasis is going to be on the big guys up front and what this offensive line is able to do and what holes they're able to open up. You have to watch Josh Brees and what yardage he's able to get for this Generals offense. Keep an eye on what they're able to do on the ground and open it up. Unfortunately, this might be the first time of the year I've called against Washington and Lee. I don't think they're going to be able to pull this one out. I think Randolph-Macon comes out with the win. I think they do similar of what Bridgewater did last week, and I'm going to call a 35-14 victory for Randolph-Macon. The Generals just aren't going to have enough to overcome this Randolph-Macon defense. They studied the film too well from what Bridgewater did last week. The Generals not able to overcome this weekend.
You heard it here first, folks. Jim Plantholt is going with the Yellow Jackets. Stay with us. Generals Game Day continues on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington, and on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting, after this short timeout.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with an SPF of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Welcome back to Generals Game Day here on WLUR and the Washington and Lee Sports Network, as Washington and Lee is set to take the field at the top of the hour here at Day Field in Ashland, Virginia, against Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets. Andy McEnroe will have the call. I'm joined in the studio today, however, by Crawford Humphreys and Colin Whitmore. And guys, the Generals are coming off a two-game losing streak after falling to the 25th-ranked Bridgewater Eagles 31-14 on Saturday. And fellas, nothing really seemed to go the Generals' way Saturday. Despite holding the Eagles to field goals on their first two drives, Bridgewater really moved the ball at ease in the first half, led by quarterback Jay Scroggins. And even on the scoring drives for the Generals offense just couldn't really stay on the field. And how big of a role, Crawford, would you say that the Generals' inability to stay on the field really had in this game and had on the defense as well?
I definitely think it put a huge weight on the back of the defense. They're having to come out on the field a lot. A couple big pass plays by Jack Pollard, a big run by Jack Pollard. Generals had the lead after the first quarter, but the offense was moving quickly, and they were on the sidelines for a majority of that game, and that allowed Bridgewater to completely gas this WNL defense. 352 total yards of offense. Scroggins went 28 for 39 passes, 265 yards passing. That really just ran this defense into the ground. It's hard to sustain that for 3 quarters of football.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. If you look at the stats, WNL offense, a season low, 198 yards and 64 second-half yards. So anytime your production is that low, when you have been the league leader or ODAC leader in offensive production thus far this season, it's a recipe for disaster, especially in the second half. And you combine a forced fumble on the 6-yard line that leads directly to a touchdown, a blocked punt, and when the defense is getting gassed like that, it's a good team like Bridgewater is going to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and credit to the defense in the second half. They really held their own. You mentioned the block punt, and outside of that, only allowed 6 points because of a missed extra point. But we mentioned the offense just couldn't really ever get it going, and that fumble by Pollard on the 6 just put the defense in an impossible situation. And Pollard himself, early in this year, we saw a very efficient quarterback, a quarterback who couldn't really seem to make mistakes. And this week going 2 for 13 with an interception and that costly fumble. This is really Pollard's first adversity that we've seen him face. He missed the game with injury against E&H, which was a tough loss. But this is, his first loss as a starter, and definitely not the game he wanted to have. So, do you think Pollard can bounce back? And how, for a young quarterback who is facing his first adversity, how does he bounce back?
Yeah, I think certainly that's something to think about when you have a young quarterback back there. Pollard obviously having a great season for a freshman still, despite last week. He leads the team in rushing yards, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. I do look for him to bounce back a little bit this game, and I think that it may work to Washington and Lee's advantage that Randolph-Macon has a huge game with Bridgewater next week that's likely going to be the conference championship, or it's going to determine who's the ODAC champion. So I think this could be a little bit of a look-ahead game for Randolph-Macon, and certainly the Generals will hope that is the case. And I think if Pollard is able to run the ball aggressively early in this game, he's going to get back to where he needs to be and where he was before this Bridgewater game last week.
I mean, listen, I think this slump for Pollard is what expected for a 19-year-old sophomore first taking the helm of this WNL team. This is the first sense of growing pains we've got from Pollard. Of course, he's coming back from an injury, obviously a little worried about that, and still trying to fully recover from that hip injury that we saw a couple weeks ago. But I think for Jack Pollard, it's really all about finishing this season strong and looking ahead to next year. He needs to take the experience from this season and move it forward. And you aren't going to get that valuable experience without having a few rough games and getting busted up a little bit and figuring out where you can improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And, going to kind of the other aspect of the offense, you look at Josh Brees, who is one of the more proven players year in, year out for this Generals team. And he's coming off, going into this year, he never had less than 10 carries in a game. And he's coming off back-to-back weeks of less than 10 carries, and that's his third time this year, only getting 8-9 carries. It's certainly not the Josh Brees usage or the Josh Brees we've seen in past years. How important is it to find him more touches heading into these last weeks of the year? And, how important is he against this Randolph-Macon stout defense?
Yeah, I think certainly part of Josh Brees' so-called slump this year is due to the fact that guys like Jack Pollard and Kobe Kirkland are running the ball with success as well. But it just has not been a typical season for him. He's not gone over the 100-yard mark at all this season. In his last 4 games, he's not even gone over 45 yards. So he's not been that beast on offense that he was the past couple seasons that Washington Lee fans are used to seeing. So I think this is one of those games where he is going to get some more carries, and they're going to challenge him to see if he can break out of that slump and get back to where he was. He scored a touchdown against Randolph-Macon last year. He really hasn't broken off many long runs. So I look for them to go back to him a little bit and see if they can get him going on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the most offensive weapons that we have seen on a WNL team in a long time, and so that will reduce Brees' role. But when you're in a 2-game slump and you need to pick me up and you need something to finish the season strong, I think your upperclassmen and the upperclassmen on the team as a whole are the people to go to. And I think Josh Brees is the leader in the locker room and a guy that you need to look for on the field to bail the team out right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Generals look to turn the page this week, as we mentioned, against a 6-1 Yellow Jacket team and as I mentioned, a stout Yellow Jacket defense that allows just under 20 points a game, averages more than 2 forced turnovers a game. Last year, the Yellow Jackets defense stymied the Generals' attack, holding them to only 7 points and 183 total yards. How can the Generals kind of learn from that game last year, and how can they have success today against this really talented Randolph-Macon defense?
I think they really need to utilize all their weapons. I think it's really going to be instilling confidence in Jack Pollard. After the last game, of course, his confidence is not going to be where it was a couple of weeks ago when he was throwing the ball, running the ball, and he was the confident quarterback that we know and love. I think it's time for the offense to really utilize all the weaponry they have, whether it is Kobe Kirkland or Josh Brees. Just surround Jack Pollard with as many playmakers as possible and take the load off of him as much as possible.
Yeah, I think either way you look at it, it's going to be a huge challenge for this offense against this Macon defense. If you look at their linebacking core, I mean, they're just extremely stout at linebacker. Calvin Whitehead, 55 total tackles on the season, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. Matt Vergara, also a linebacker, 40 total tackles and interception. They're just extremely strong at that position, and they're going to know that they're going to have to stop the run in this game. So I look for the passing attack to come together a little bit in this game potentially as well. I think maybe if they can get Pollard in some play action situations, that could be good for this offense. But this is an incredibly good defense they're going up against, and they're going to have to find some unique ways to gain success.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, the Yellow Jackets, not necessarily a high-powered offense, but an offense that knows just how to just do enough to win. They're led by freshman quarterback Presley Egbers, who replaced senior Burke Estes in the middle of the season. And they also have a really talented running attack led by senior Trey Frederick, who's just averaging just shy of 100 yards per game. But if you're the Generals, your weakness in the past has been getting kind of picked apart by some talented quarterbacks, and you look at this Randolph-Macon team who is run-focused. Do you think playing a run-focused offense plays into the Generals' favor?
Yeah, I certainly think it's going to be a change of pace from last week against Bridgewater, where you've got a guy like Scroggins who may not be the most athletic guy on the field, but a guy who certainly sees the field well and is able to pick out his targets nicely. When you mentioned Trey Frederick, it feels like we've been talking about him for the past 5 years, and he's been a WNL nightmare. He is an absolute beast at running back, and he has shown that again this season. 682 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Clearly one of the best players in the ODAC, and he did pick this WNL defense apart last season, going for over 180 yards on the ground. So stopping him is going to be absolutely key. And guys like Will Corey that are leaders on this defense, Davis Waldrop, Dean Johnson, those guys that are in the linebacking, defensive back area of the field, they're going to have to step in and plug some of those holes. And it's just going to be a question of whether or not they're able to contain Frederick, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really on the WNL rush defense that we saw so strong early in this season to pick itself up and come together as a team. You said guys like Will Corey and Dean Johnson. Dean Johnson, with a heck of a game against Bridgewater, need to continue his run. But the rush defense has played well for WNL this season. I think they need to continue that and find what helped them be so successful in the beginning of the season.
Impact players and score predictions for today's game. Colin, we'll start with you.
I hate to go to the other team for my impact player, but I have to go with Calvin Whitehead. I think we're going to hear his name called a lot in this game. He is just an absolute beast at the linebacking position, and I think he's going to show that, and I think he's going to be a real problem for this WNL offense. So my score prediction is that I think this could be a little bit closer than it maybe should be on paper. I think that this is a little bit of a look-ahead game for Randolph-Macon. I think WNL will hang with them early. The two offenses on paper are fairly balanced, averaging around 33 points per game. So I look for the WNL team to come out with a little bit of pep in their step, trying to bounce back from this tough loss to Bridgewater. But in the end, I think Randolph-Macon comes away with a 35-21 victory.
Crawford? Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a closer game than it would look on paper and than it would look after the last two results for Washington and Lee. My final score prediction is 28-14 win for Randolph-Macon. I agree that WNL will hang in for a little bit, but my impact player is Dean Johnson on the defense. 7 tackles, 1 interception against Bridgewater. He's a guy that needs to lead this WNL defense, and especially with the run defense as they look to contain Randolph-Macon. So I think really the weight in today's game is going to fall on the defense. As much as we've talked about Jack Pollard and him recovering from his 2-game slump, it's really going to fall all on the defense in today's game.
We heard it here. We hope the Generals prove you guys wrong, but definitely a tall task ahead on this Saturday. And right now it's time for Jeremy Franklin's interview with Washington and Lee head coach Garrett LaRose. You're listening to Generals Game Day on WLUR and the Generals Sports Network.
Jeremy Franklin, joined now by Washington and Lee head coach Garrett LaRose. Coach, a tough defeat for your team at home against Bridgewater on Saturday. The Eagles undefeated on the season. What impressed you most about that Bridgewater team?
I think you could definitely see their experience as the game played out. You know, they were a very disciplined team who was able to react and adjust during the game. You had a fifth-year senior at quarterback who wasn't going to make a mistake more than once if he made any. On the defensive side, at times we were able to exploit some things here and there, but they quickly adjusted and were able to adapt and make plays. So I think one of the biggest things that stood out for me was that was a very mature, senior-laden team, and they certainly played like it and took advantage of the mistakes we've made.
What kind of response have you gotten from your guys in practice this week as you get ready for Randolph-Macon?
I think despite what the scoreboard said last weekend and for the last 2 weeks, I think our team remains confident that we have a lot of players who can be productive for us. So I think there's been a lot of energy and enthusiasm as we go in to play another quality opponent. And I think it's really shifted from us maybe going into these games competing for that conference championship conversation in these last 3 weeks as we looked at this whole schedule unfold to now having an opportunity to prove ourselves as a program, maybe taking on a little bit of an underdog role and kind of looking at it from that light. So I think our guys have done a really good job preparing, having a voice out there that understands that there's still a lot of football left to be played for us, and there's a lot of opportunities that we'll have coming down the stretch here in our ODEC schedule.
I know last season was kind of a painful ending for the Generals with some tough losses down the stretch. Have you learned some lessons from those games that you can apply to this year?
Certainly, and I think not only has our staff learned a little bit of ways that we can manage this stretch of our schedule a little bit better, but I've seen it in our players and our leadership of understanding where we are right now in our season, sitting at 4-3 with what we have ahead of us and understanding what these opportunities will look like. And certainly having a really quality opponent ahead of us, I think, makes it that much easier to prepare in this moment when you have a lot of respect for the team that you're about to play and understand the brand of football that they play, the discipline that they played with is really going to challenge you if you don't prepare, where it's not necessarily a lackluster approach and having an expectation. It's a workman effort that we understand is going to be necessary these next couple of weeks.
Let's take a look now at Randolph-Macon. You got a fifth-year senior all-ODAC performer at running back in Trey Frederick for a team that really does want to pound the football and control the line of scrimmage. What are the keys to slowing down the Yellow Jackets on that side of the ball?
I think certainly he's a huge key for anyone who's going to play them. They've got a freshman quarterback coming in right now who's playing some pretty good football, as well as a slot back in number 4 who does just about everything for him. So understanding those 3 key elements to their offense, which are all triggered by a really good offensive lineman and a senior tight end that they have there. So I think much like last week, we can hopefully learn from the lessons of this is a seasoned offense with a few new pieces that our defense has to understand how to limit explosive plays for them, make them work for it. And we know that it's going to be a game of limited possession, so that's going to be important as we key on Trey and the opportunities that they give their quarterback to make plays is how can we limit them and get them off schedule as an offense. And I think that's a big key for our defense right now is keeping them off schedule, trying to limit 4-yard gains to 2-yard gains, and challenging that first-year quarterback and put him in positions to make plays.
The Generals offense struggled at times against Bridgewater, especially in that second half. How do you get back on track against what will be a very good, very physical Randolph-Macon defense?
I think the mantra all week in that room has certainly been about the details of the offense. Certainly in the first half, in 17 plays, scoring 14 points, you're not excited about the way that your offense worked because you'd like to sustain some drives and keep the defense off the field. But you see that 14 points in 17 plays, how that correlates. We're doing some things effective. What we didn't do in the second half very well is manage some of the footwork, and that's really where I gave Bridgewater a lot of credit. Was any mistake that we made, they certainly made us pay for it, whether it was taking the wrong angle on a block. They were able to disrupt that block and become +1 at the point of attack. So I think the optimism was it wasn't really in our play calling. It was really in our execution. And they were all small details that are easily fixable for our guys, where when they started to press as that game unfolded, because they knew that their opportunities would be limited with Bridgewater huddling every play and managing the clock, that we pressed and tried to play outside the framework, and our guys really saw that on film and reacted well to that.
What would a win do for your football team if you can go to Randolph-Macon and get a victory?
I think that's just really setting the stage for us to close out the season. I think it's important to show this team that we have the ability to play with the top teams in our conference. I think this schedule stretch for us with Emory and Henry, Bridgewater, and Randolph-Macon. I think if you look at the preseason rankings, you look at the current statistics and rankings in the conference right now, they're certainly playing all very well. And none of these teams are ones that we didn't feel like we walked off the field and said, "Man, I don't know how we win that game." But I think showing that we can win this game is an important step for us to play a quality opponent, execute against a quality opponent, and understand that we have that ability to play within our systems and be successful. It's not a matter of us making plays outside of what we do, but we can trust the way that we've done work for the last 12 weeks since training camp. To be able to apply that on a Saturday afternoon and be successful will be big for our program.
Well, Garrett, thank you for joining us. Best of luck against the Jackets.
All right, thank you, Jeremy.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
At the football game, Jim shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. He screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" Jim streaks the field.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
The following is a presentation of Generals Football on WLUR Lexington 91.5 FM. Now let's go out to the field for the call of today's game. Here's Andy McEnroe.
Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Generals Football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington, live streaming today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. We are live today in Ashland, Virginia, at Dayfield on the campus of Randolph-Macon for Game 8 of the Washington and Lee season between the Washington and Lee Generals, who come in with a mark of 4-3 overall, 3-2 in the conference, against those aforementioned Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets, who sit atop the ODAC with a conference mark of 5-0. Overall, they are 6-1 with big wins essentially all season long, except for their season opener when they dropped the game to Johns Hopkins. Last week, Washington and Lee, though, fell to Bridgewater, essentially ending their chase of an ODAC crown. as they lost to the Eagles 31-14. In that contest, it was a tale of the Generals being unable to slow down the attacking Bridgewater offense. Jay Scroggins, the quarterback for the Eagles, was very efficient, 28 of 39 for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He spread the ball around very effectively. 3 different receivers with over 4 catches. Actually, I should say 4 receivers with over 4 catches, led by Trey Stevens, who had 5 catches. Devontae Smith for the Eagles also had 5 catches. For Washington and Lee on offense, they were stuck in neutral all day. Jack Pollard really unable to get going. He's had such a tremendous first season as the starter for Washington and Lee. But last week against the Eagles, 2 of 13, 45 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He did have a nice 56-yard run, but because the Generals' big play offense was limited to essentially just 2 big plays, a Jack Pollard pass to Montgomery Owen for a 38-yard touchdown and a Jack Pollard 56-yard touchdown run, the Generals' offense really couldn't sustain drives, and as a result, Bridgewater won the time of possession. The Generals' defense wore down during the course of the game, and the result was what it was, with the Eagles coming out on top. Randolph-Macon is coming off of a bye. They last played on September 19th at Southern Virginia. They won that contest 47-27. In fact, they've rattled off 6 straight wins, 5 straight conference wins dating all the way back to September 21st, when at home they played their closest conference contest of the season, beating Emory and Henry by the score of 20-17. This broadcast of Washington and Lee football is being brought to you in part by the Washington and Lee University Store, owned and operated by W&L. The University Store is located right on campus in the Elrod Commons. The store features a wide range of apparel celebrating W&L, including the Peter Millar Collegiate Collection, offering polos and sweaters for your game day style. If you're looking for workout gear, we have a variety of performance apparel from Nike and Under Armour. All proceeds go back to the Washington and Lee community, helping to fund athletic, alumni, and student programs. The store is open 7 days a week. Order online anytime at store.wlu.edu. This is the 68th meeting between these two teams. The series is tied at 32-32-3. The first matchup between Randolph-Macon and Washington and Lee goes all the way back to 1903. W&L has won 6 of the last 9 meetings between these two teams. They lost last year in Lexington by the score of 23-7. However, the last 2 times that this game was in Ashland, Washington and Lee was victorious. It's now time for your Washington and Lee University Store starting lineups. We'll start with Washington and Lee's offense, and at quarterback, the sophomore number 9, Jack Pollard. The 2 slot backs are sophomore number 4, Kobe Kirkland, and senior number 6, Jimmy Johnson. The option back is number 1, Josh Brees. He's a junior. At wide receiver, a late change for the Generals. Getting the start is the first-year number 19, Ty Powell. As you may know from last week's contest, Montgomery Owen will be out for the first half for the Generals after being ejected in the contest against Bridgewater. At tight end is the junior number 41, Alex Heat. The offensive line includes first-year number 64, Logan Moyer, sophomore number 74, Jared Cordova, senior number 66, Kyle Perrell, first-year number 76, Luke Halls, and senior number 71, Sean Clark. They'll be going against a very tough Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets defense that is allowing just 108.4 yards per game on the ground and another 181 yards per game through the air, limiting opponents to just 19 points per game. Tyler Fink anchors their defensive line. He's a senior. He'll get the start at defensive end. He wears number 22. The defensive tackle is junior number 76, Blair Page. The other defensive lineman is junior number 57, Phil Pullen. The linebacking core for the Yellow Jackets includes sophomore number 36, Stephen Cash, senior number 21, Griffin Davis, and junior number 6, Brendan Weinberg. The defensive backfield for Randolph-Macon has junior number 31, Riggs Jordan, junior number 5, Brad Jeffers, junior number 24, Jameel Seiler, and sophomore number 27, Dallas Robinson, as well as first-year number 7, Jabril Lewis. The defense for Washington and Lee will attempt to slow down a very tough running game for the Yellow Jackets. anchored by their senior Trey Frederick, but we'll talk about him in just a moment. The defense for the Generals has senior number 88 Oak Mize, senior number 69 Phil Davis, and senior number 92 Connor Corbett as the down lineman, often joined by junior number 54 Andrew Frailer, who starts at defensive end but will stand up from time to time. The linebacking core for the Generals has senior number 32 Will Corey, junior number 40 Sam Murphy, and junior number 16 Fred Benham. The defensive backfield has sophomore number 24 Owen Roberts, senior number 25 Davis Waltrip, sophomore number 22 Dean Johnson, and senior number 31 Matt Dodson. We'll do the Randolph-Macon starting offense when they take the field. Washington and Lee won the coin toss. They have elected to defer. The Generals will be in their white road uniforms with blue lettering, black trim around those numbering, white pants, white helmet for the Generals today. Randolph-Macon in black uniforms, reminiscent of the Pittsburgh Steelers uniforms, gold numbering, more yellow gold numbering, I should say, with some stripes on the sleeves, black pants, black helmets with a stripe down the middle. It's a very monochromatic showing here today in Ashland, Virginia. After Washington and Lee deferred after winning the coin toss, Randolph-Macon has elected to take the football, and so it will be Jared Wright for the Generals set to kick off. And back deep to return for Randolph-Macon will be number 4, Jordan Foster. We've got 15 minutes on the clock. The Generals looking to play the role of spoiler here today. Randolph-Macon looking to continue their march for a second straight ODAC championship. And Wright hits a high end-over-end kick that Foster will field at the goal line. He'll work to the middle of the field, across the 10, now across the 15. Trying to bounce to the outside, gets across the 20, and will be tackled just shy of the 25-yard line. On the stop for the Generals is Washington and Lee's first-year number 3, Cole Camelli. As I noted, we'll talk the Randolph-Macon starting lineup as they are led out onto the field by their first-year quarterback, number 15, Presley Egbers. In the backfield is senior number 5, Trey Frederick. He's their leading rusher. Jordan Foster will get the start at wide receiver. He wears number 4. DeAndre Gill and Trey Owens are their 2 other receivers. We'll do the interior linemen and the tight end. After this 1st and 10 snap, Egbers hands to Frederick. Frederick working to the left side of the offensive line, trying to get outside, and will be tackled after a gain of about 3 yards. Oak Mize on the stop for the blue and white. The tight end for Randolph-Macon is number 87, Sam Tanner. He's a senior. The offensive line features junior number 50, Brent Campbell, junior number 59, Connor Denning, first-year number 77, Matt Hale, senior number 56, Jordan Rochester, and sophomore number 76, Will Jackson. 4 receiver set as Egbers operates from the shotgun, 3 to the right side of the formation. Egbers, play action pass, looking over the middle, and this is knocked down at the line of scrimmage. Will Corey with the breakup as he elevates on the blitz to knock it down, and that will bring up a 3rd down and 7 for Randolph-Macon. First offensive possession of the game. The Yellow Jackets offense came into today's contest averaging 382.1 yards per game. As we noted, most of those yards on the ground, 213.1 yards per game, another 169 yards per game through the air. 4 receiver set with a tight end, 2 flankers to the right side of the setup, a split end to the left side. Coming in motion is Foster working back to the formation. Egbers, the right-hander, back to pass. 3-step drop out of shotgun, throws the flat route. It's complete. He's got his man, number 19, DeAndre Gill, but Gill is tackled immediately by Fred Benham. A gain of about 2, so it will bring up 4th down and 5, and here comes the Randolph-Macon punting team for the first time today. With Montgomery Owen out for the first half, Owen Roberts will go back to return for Washington and Lee. Gavin Stone is the punter for Randolph-Macon. Generals crowding the line of scrimmage. Line of scrimmage is the 30, the Randolph-Macon 30. Owen Roberts stands back at his 28. Low snap that Stone fields. He'll get the punt away. It's a short kick, an end-over-end kick that bounces in Randolph-Macon territory and rolls back to the 46-yard line. So great field position for Washington and Lee to start this first drive. 13:24 to play in the opening quarter. We are knotted at 0 in Ashland, Virginia. Hall of Fame game here at Randolph-Macon. Thanks for joining us on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington, live streaming today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. Jack Pollard at quarterback. He'll operate from the shotgun. Josh Brees offset to his left. Slot back sweep, I should say, as Kobe Kirkland came from the right slot back position, got the handoff, tried to work outside, only able to get back to the original line of scrimmage. Making the stop for Randolph-Macon was number 33, Matthew Vergara, coming up from his linebacker position. Loss of 1 officially, second down and 11 upcoming. Brees directly behind Pollard now on the 2nd and 11. Speed option to the right side. Quick pitch to Josh Brees. Kobe Kirkland's the lead blocker, but Brees unable to get to the corner as it's well played by Randolph-Macon, and making the stop is number 48, Tyler DeBerry, as the linebacking core for Randolph-Macon getting in the action here early brings up 3rd down and 10, an obvious passing situation for Washington and Lee. So a net of 0 yards on the first 2 offensive plays has the Generals at the Yellow Jackets' 46-yard line. Wide side of the field is the left side. They'll hand off to Kirkland going that way. He gets a great block from Brees, and Kobe Kirkland is going to run the slot back left side sweep and have a first down, a gain of 15 on the run by Kobe Kirkland. And Washington and Lee gets out of a 3rd down and long, as the Generals, unable to sustain drives a week ago, now getting a first down on their first offensive possession of this contest. Ty Powell, as I mentioned, starting at wide receiver. He lines up to the left side of the offensive formation. Pollard from the shotgun, hands to Josh Brees. Brees tries to make a move in the backfield, but great penetration that time by Matthew Vergara, and Vergara able to make a shoestring tackle. No gain on the play as Brees unable to break through the first contact. 2nd down and 10 for Washington and Lee. Ball at the Randolph-Macon 31-yard line in the middle of the field. The Generals going right to left in this opening quarter towards the video scoreboard here at Day Field. Triple option look as Pollard will keep it, running to the right side. Makes the first man miss, lunges for the first down, and looks to be about a yard shy. Randolph-Macon flew out to cover the pitchman in Kirkland, and Pollard cuts it back inside. A nice run by the sophomore quarterback. There is a discussion unfolding between the officiating staff. No laundry on the field, as the referee is headed over to talk to second-year head coach Garrett LaRose for Washington and Lee. Trey Lachlan coming into the ballgame at wide receiver. Drew Richardson also in the ballgame now at quarterback. So with the Generals depleted at wide receiver, with Luke Allison out for the contest and Montgomery Owen unable to play in the first half,
The inadvertent whistle, the WNL takes the ball.
So an inadvertent whistle is the call. Now Drew Richardson in the ball game at quarterback. And now the officials want to talk this over, as the 16th year head coach for Randolph-Macon, Pedro Aruza, not too happy, and he's now out onto the field. It will be 3rd down and about 2 yards if the play stands. An inadvertent whistle, as now the coaching staff both talking, and we're not quite sure, as they're now backing it up from where Pollard was.
At the 26-yard line. It'll be 3rd down and
so 3rd down and 5, so Pollard doesn't get the full credit for his run. 3rd and 5, Drew Richardson in the ballgame at quarterback, the senior. Trey Lachlan at receiver. Kirkland comes in deep motion. Richardson will run the quarterback counter, running up the middle. And Drew Richardson runs quarterback power and picks up near first down yardage. That's what he was so successful in doing before he was injured. As Drew Richardson, a bigger body, 6'2", 215 pounds. He's just short of the first down, so 4th and inches. Richardson stays in the game at quarterback. This is Richardson's first action at quarterback since the Swanee contest when he was injured. Lachlan comes in deep motion, faking the speed option, and it's Richardson right up the middle for 6 points. Welcome back, Drew Richardson, and W&L's on the board first as they lead Randolph-Macon 6-0. Richardson, before getting hurt, ran the quarterback counter, essentially a power run straight up the middle so effectively. He hurts his knee, is out for a number of games. Jack Pollard comes in, plays quite well, but now for Washington and Lee, deploying Drew Richardson as a weapon could be very effective for the blue and white. As Richardson in for the touchdown, the extra point off the foot of Jarrett Wright is up and good. And with 10:29 to play in the first quarter, it's Washington and Lee striking first. They lead the Yellow Jackets by the score of 7-0. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Dayfield in Ashland, Virginia. Washington and Lee strikes first as Drew Richardson with a 22-yard touchdown run, capping off a 7-play, 46-yard drive for Washington and Lee. The Generals not relying on the big play unless you count the 22-yard run by Richardson. And now Jarrett Wright will boot it away for the second time today. A high end-over-end kick that Foster will field at the 5. Works back to the middle, now towards the Randolph-Macon bench, the right side of the return, as he gets across the 25 and is driven out of bounds at the Randolph-Macon 31-yard line. And that's where the Yellow Jackets will go to work. Their second offensive drive of the contest. The first drive, they were unable to get anything really going, as the Generals' defense was stout against Trey Frederick and the run. Wildcat looking like formation for the Yellow Jackets here on first and 10. No correction. It's Egbers at quarterback in the shotgun. Throws the quick wide receiver screen pass to Foster. The Generals defense all over it. Dean Johnson with first contact, but it's Davis Waldrop cleaning it up. As Egbers at quarterback fires the wide receiver screen to the left side of the formation to Foster. Bounced off of Johnson, but Davis Waldrop close behind to clean it up. Loses a yard, brings up second down and 11. Ball at the 31-yard line. So the Generals defense threw 2 first downs at least, playing very stout. 4 down linemen for the blue and white, 4 receivers for the black and gold. Egbers sets up a wide receiver screen to the left side to Foster. It's complete, and the Generals play it nicely. Will Corey running out from his linebacker position to make the stop after a gain of about 6 yards. Foster lost his helmet on the play, and so he'll have to come out of the contest here. Tim Hannery will come into the ball game to replace him. 3rd and 6 upcoming. Apologize to those listening at home or wherever you're listening. The loudspeaker directly above our booth, so you're hearing some of the PA announcer, as am I. Empty backfield set this time for Randolph-Macon. 2 wide receivers to the left side of the formation, 3 to the right side. Frederick comes in deep motion. He'll swing around the quarterback and set up in the right flat. That's the way Egbers goes. Egbers completes to Frederick. Frederick trying to break a tackle, unable to do so as he is dragged down by Washington and Lee's number 16, Fred Benham, after a gain of about 4 yards. Will bring up 4th down and 2. Randolph-Macon at their own 40-yard line, and they'll trot their punting unit out for the second time today. So a great defensive stand by the Generals, as the punting team for Randolph-Macon will come out with 8:40 to play in the first quarters. Washington and Lee leading Randolph-Macon 7-0. Owen Roberts back deep to return for the blue and white, standing at his own 19. Gavin Stone is the kicker. He'll kick this one away at the 30. A high spiraling kick that Owen Roberts will fair catch at the Washington and Lee 20, and that's where the offense will go to work for the second time today. So 2 3-and-outs for the Yellow Jacket offense. Not the way they wanted to start the contest, but for the blue and white defense and for defensive coordinator Brendan O'Brien, he has to be quite happy with his team and his unit, I should say, in terms of what they've done here in the opening quarter thus far. Jack Pollard back at quarterback for Washington and Lee. And for the first time today, we see Alex Wirtz, the sophomore, line up at option back. He'll be directly behind Pollard. Kirkland comes in deep motion from the left slot back position. They run the option to the right. Pollard will keep it and tuck it back inside of the formation. Carries forward for about a gain of 5 to set up a second down and 5. The Randolph-Macon linebacking core certainly flowing to the pitch. They know Kobe Kirkland is a big play machine for the blue and white, forcing Pollard to keep it. And if you're Jack Pollard playing with a lower leg injury for most of this year, you want to avoid the extra hits. Second down and 5, ball at the Generals 26. Pollard back to pass. Throws a fade route to Kirkland. Kirkland unable to get separation from the Randolph-Macon defender, Eric Harris, in coverage for the black and gold. And so that'll bring up third down and 5. Pollard's pass was a little far. Kirkland was lined up in the left slot back position, just kind of ran a takeoff. Depending upon your system, the system I grew up in, that'd be an 8 route, just a takeoff. Nonetheless, it's third down and 5. Ball at the 26. Offense's wide side is the left side. Play action pass. Back to pass is Pollard. He's got a man wide open. It's Jimmy Johnson. Catches it at the Randolph-Macon 45, and he'll run in for a touchdown. There is a flag back down at the 24-yard line. Johnson was wide open. A great fake, and Pollard a perfect strike to Johnson. But this one may be coming back, as it could be an illegal shift on the Generals. A great play design and a perfect strike by Pollard, but it may be all for naught. Initial sign.
Illegal shift on the offense. Half of this to go. Replay. Start down.
So an illegal shift called on Washington and Lee. And so the officiating crew will respot the football, and the Generals will have third down and long upcoming. A missed opportunity for Washington and Lee, as certainly the illegal shift did not impact the result of the play. A beautiful strike by Pollard. It will be third down and 10 for Washington and Lee. Ball at the original line of scrimmage, which was the 21-yard line. Pollard from the shotgun, play action. Randolph-Macon brings the blitz, and they're able to get to Pollard. Wrapping him up was number 48, Tyler DeBerry. A sack and a loss of 11 yards, and here comes the Washington and Lee punting unit for the first time today.
Credit Tyler DeBerry.
So Bo Sheridan comes out onto the field for Washington and Lee. On the season, he's had 31 punts. He's averaging 40.1 yards per kick. His long on the season is 66 yards. This is going to be a tough one for him, as he will be kicking from his end zone. Spread punt formation for Washington and Lee, which is very dangerous. They had one blocked last week. Sheridan gets a good kick away. Foster standing back at his 50. Sheridan's punt bounces at the Washington and Lee 45, but takes a general roll into Randolph-Macon territory and will be downed at the Randolph-Macon 43-yard line. So considering all the factors there, a great punt by Bo Sheridan to flip the field. And now the Generals' defense, which has been stout through 2 possessions, will have to do it again as Randolph-Macon starts with its best offensive field position of the contest. Egbers came into this contest with an efficiency rating of 135.9, completing about 62.5% of his passes. And what we've seen thus far is he's throwing those quick, short routes. Handoff is to Trey Frederick on first down. Frederick will run forward off the right guard's inside hip for a gain of about 4 yards. Frederick came into the contest averaging 5.1 yards per carry. He's had 134 carries on the season prior to today's contest. His long run is 33 yards, but he's definitely the workhorse for Randolph-Macon, averaging 97.4 yards per game. Egbers goes under center I formation behind him, single flanker to the right side of the formation with a 2 tight end set. Egbers turns, reverse pivot handoff to Frederick. Frederick finds a hole off the right tackle's outer hip, and Frederick will have a first down as he's across the 50 and into Washington and Lee territory, brought down at the 43-yard line. An injured General down on the field. Based on where the General is laying, probably involved in the tackle of Frederick. We'll let you know who it is in just a moment. A lot of action today across Washington and Lee sports, as well as in the ODAC, as we have an injury timeout on the field. In the pregame show, we mentioned that volleyball fell to Barry last night, 3-0. Earlier today, Washington and Lee in action at the Emory National Invitation fell to Birmingham Southern by the score of 3-2. Birmingham Southern won set 1, 25-17. The Generals won set 2, 25-23. Birmingham Southern proceeded to win set 3, 25-15. The Generals bounced back in set 4, winning it 26-24. And Birmingham Southern took set 5, 17-15. We'll have more Washington and Lee score updates for you throughout the rest of this broadcast. Davis Waldrop was the downed Washington and Lee General. He's back on his feet and walking off under his own power. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon coming out of that injury timeout. Egbers operating from the shotgun, 2 backs in the backfield alongside of him. Frederick slightly offset to his right, and behind him, Foster comes in cross motion. Quick shuffle pass to Foster. Foster trying to get to the outside, but great backside pursuit by the Generals, and coming over to make the stop for Washington and Lee was Fred Benham, who flew all the way from the outside linebacker position on the far side of the field to make the tackle of Foster on the near side of the field. Foster gains 1 yard on the shuffle pass reception, brings up 2nd down and 9. Ball at the Washington and Lee 42-yard line. 5:20 to go in the opening quarter. It's Washington and Lee 7, Randolph-Macon 0. A beautiful, brisk November Saturday here in Ashland, Virginia. Egbers from the shotgun. General show blitz. Egbers, play action pass. Looks for his tight end coming in just a quick dump-off route. It's complete to Sam Tanner, and Tanner able to get a 1st down and more down to the Washington and Lee 21-yard line. Tanner was uncovered. He set up to block on the play action, then just slipped out. A quick dump off, and Egbers hits him in stride. So Randolph-Macon sustaining a drive now, as they are 1 yard outside of the red zone and threatening with just a short passing attack and a nice running game. Egbers under center. 4 down linemen for the Generals. They bring the run blitz as Frederick gets the handoff, trying to get outside, and this time the blue and white swarm and drop Frederick for a loss of 1. Oak Mize in on the stop. Andrew Frailer as well. Will Corey there for the Generals too. Truly a team effort on that tackle. So 2nd down and 11 upcoming. The philosophy of the bend but don't break defense that's been deployed very effectively all season by the Generals will be tested here. Washington and Lee scored the first points of this contest on a Drew Richardson touchdown, but here comes Randolph-Macon threatening. Foster lines up in the backfield with Frederick. Play action pass. Foster running the flat route, but Oak Mize coming off the edge, and Oak Mize with the sack buries Egbers in the backfield. A play-action pass that was clearly designed to try to get Jordan Foster, their top receiver, the football as he lined up in what would be a traditional fullback position, comes out of the backfield in a little flat route to the left side of the offensive formation. But Egbers couldn't see as essentially Oak Mize was unblocked and comes in for the sack. Generals will go with their speed defensive line formation as there's mass substitutions, led by Chris Elliott coming into the ball game for the blue and white. 3rd and 16 upcoming. Offense's wide side is the left side. 4 wide receivers set for Randolph-Macon. Quarterback draws. Egbers running up the middle. The Generals were in zone defense and playing very deep, and Egbers will have near 1st down yardage. The offensive line let Washington and Lee rush up the field. Egbers took it right up the middle and gains 15, maybe 16 yards. We'll have to see where the spot is. And the officials lining it up. And now there will be an official timeout for measurement. So the Generals' defensive line gets a little undisciplined there on the 3rd down and long, looking for the big play, looking for the sack. And the result is Egbers running up the middle for near 1st down yardage. As the sticks come out here, we'll take a look at other scores across the world. of Washington and Lee sports, as well as NCAA Division III sports and NCAA Division I for that matter, as there's a lot of action going on. The sticks come out, and it looks like Macon will be just short, so it's decision time. Do you take the points, or do you go for it on 4th and inches? Washington and Lee field hockey in action at the W&L Turf Field. So if you're in Lexington listening to me, take your radio over onto the turf field. In the second quarter, it's Washington and Lee 0, Bridgewater 0, as the Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets offense stays out on the field with 2:33 left in the first quarter here. 4th down and inches. Timeout called by Washington and Lee, and that'll stop the clock with 2:29 to play in the opening quarter. We'll take a quick timeout as well, where in the first quarter, it's Washington and Lee 7, Randolph-Macon 0. Stay with us. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting, and on 91.5 FM WLUR.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Day Field on the campus of Randolph-Macon College in Ashland, Virginia. Generals football on WLUR. I am Andy McEnroe. Thanks for joining me today on a beautiful November Saturday. 4th and inches upcoming as we come out of this timeout. Randolph-Macon has the ball in the red zone. Currently at the Washington and Lee 12. They have to get officially to the 11-yard line for a first down. 2 tight ends set for Randolph-Macon. Flanker to the right side of the formation comes in motion. Handoff is to Frederick. Frederick running for the first down, and he'll have enough by about 2 yards. Get some great blocking on the outside, as his lead blocker that time was number 22, Trey Owens, who motioned in from the flanker position. So it will be 1st and goal for Randolph-Macon. Ball at the Generals' 8-yard line. Frederick will run towards the sideline, get a word from the coaching staff, now join the huddle again. Play clock as 15 as the Yellow Jackets come out of the huddle. I formation behind Egbers, who goes under center. Generals crowd the line of scrimmage. Play action pass as Egbers bootlegs to the right, trying to get to the corner, throwing on the run. He had a man open, and it's incomplete. It looked like he was looking for his tight end, Sam Tanner. Tanner, who had come from the left tight end position all the way in the back part of the end zone, essentially running a dig route, working all the way back to the right corner, the direction that Egbers bootlegged to. And Egbers' throw had Tanner go to the turf, and Tanner could not hold on to the football. So 2nd down and goal upcoming for the Yellow Jackets. Yellow Jackets taking their time in the huddle. They break the huddle with 5 on the play clock. They'll have to hurry to the line of scrimmage. Generals crowding it, and now the Randolph-Macon coaching staff will call a timeout from the bench, not wanting to waste this 2nd down and goal from the Washington and Lee 8. We'll take a timeout as well. We're in the first quarter with 1:48 to go. It's Randolph-Macon trailing Washington and Lee by the score of 7-0.
At the football game, Jim shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. He screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" Jim streaks the field.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Randolph-Macon head coach Pedro Aruza sending his team back out onto the field coming out of this timeout. As I noted earlier, he's in his 16th year here at Randolph-Macon, 96-65, but 5-10 all-time against the Generals. His offense threatening, 2nd down and goal. Foster coming in motion. Egbers fakes the handoff to him, and Egbers will keep it and run in with the quarterback keeper for the touchdown as Randolph-Macon on the board after the 8-yard run by their first-year quarterback, making the score 7-6. So Egbers, since ascending to the starting job, has put this offense on track. You heard in the interview in the pregame with head coach Garrett LaRose for the Generals, it's all about keeping Randolph-Macon off schedule. On that drive, they were on schedule. The point after touchdown attempt is up and good as Chris Vidal at kicker puts it through the uprights. And we are knotted at 7 with 1:42 to go in the first quarter. We'll keep it here in the booth. I am Andy McEnroe, flying solo today for Washington and Lee football on 91.5 FM WLUR and live streaming today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. If you've ever wanted to hear me talk for 3.5 hours straight, today is your day. It's like having a one-way conversation. Washington and Lee put together a good scoring drive on their first offensive possession, able to march down the field. But since then, the offense hasn't really been able to get anything going. That scoring drive was 7 plays, 46 yards in 2 minutes and 45 seconds for the Generals. Randolph-Macon, after being stifled on their first few offensive drives, that time getting good field position on the Bo Sheridan punt, starting just shy of the 50-yard line, and were able to march down the field and get a touchdown to even this game up at 7. Vidal on the kickoff for Randolph-Macon sends a high end-over-end kick that works. Will field on the run at the 12, runs straight up the gut, loses the football. It pops out around the 35, and it looks like Randolph-Macon is going to recover the football. So Randolph-Macon recovering the football as Wirtz loses it on the kickoff return, and you cannot have that if you're Washington and Lee. Looking to play the role of spoiler today, you cannot have costly turnovers in the contest. And unfortunately for the Generals and head coach Garrett LaRose, that's just what they did. Would love to provide you with some live stats here, but the live stats significantly behind the contest. So you'll just have to trust me in that turnovers are bad, and Randolph-Macon's offense that found its gear in its last drive is now back out on the field. Presley Egbers at quarterback, hands to Trey Frederick. Frederick on first down looking for a big run, gets to the outside, down the left sideline, the Washington and Lee sideline, and he's got a first down, a gain of 12 on that carry. A Randolph-Macon Yellow Jacket first down. And so 1st and 10 for the Yellow Jackets, ball at the Washington and Lee 24-yard line. Randolph-Macon looking to capitalize on the momentum swing here in the first quarter. Handoff is to Frederick. Frederick off the right guard's outer hip this time. Runs forward for a gain of about 6. Runs into Will Corey at the Washington and Lee 19-yard line.
Pickup of 5.
2nd down and 5 upcoming as they officially gave Frederick 5 yards.
Will Corey and Kyle
as we go under a minute to play in the opening quarter, 2nd down and 5 upcoming for Randolph-Macon at the Washington and Lee 19. 2 receivers and a tight end as Egbers operates from the shotgun. Handoff to Frederick for the 3rd straight play, and the workhorse back dances forward for a gain of about 4. Looks to be about 1 yard shy of a first down, and so we'll bring up 3rd down and 1. 10-second difference between the game and play clock. Randolph-Macon does not have to run a play here in the first quarter. It looks like they will attempt to do so as they break the huddle with 18 seconds to go on the game clock here in the first quarter. Egbers from the shotgun. Frederick offset to his left. Generals crowd the line of scrimmage. Quarterback keeper. Frederick is the lead blocker for Egbers. Egbers breaks 1 tackle, loses the football at the end of his run. The Generals defense is pointing their direction. No official sign yet. Now there is. It's Washington and Lee football. So the first-year quarterback on the quarterback draw loses the football, and a turnover by the Generals on the kickoff is reversed as Washington and Lee recovers the fumble by Presley Egbers. So the Generals will take over deep in their own territory with 3.4 seconds to go in the first quarter. We are knotted at 7. Jack Pollard at quarterback for Washington and Lee. All white uniforms today for the Generals, going right to left here, at least for one more play. Handoff is to Kobe Kirkland, running the right side sweep, and Kirkland loses yardage. Tackled at the Generals' 5-yard line. And that will bring us to the end of the first quarter. So after one quarter of play here in Ashland, Virginia, it's Washington and Lee 7, Randolph-Macon 7. We'll take a timeout as the teams switch fields. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR and live streaming today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting.
Okay, Jimmy, we just need to pick up some light bulbs.
Which ones are we supposed to buy, Grandpa?
Well, we can save money by using an energy-saving incandescent CFL or LED.
How about this bulb?
We need to replace a 60-watt bulb. That one is 800 lumens, so it should do the trick.
Lumens?
Lumens tell us how bright the light is. The more lumens, the brighter the bulb.
You know, Grandpa, you're pretty bright yourself.
Lumens, the new way to shop for light. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
And welcome back to Ashland, Virginia, as the teams switch sides. Washington and Lee will be going left to right on your radio dial here in quarter number 2. Randolph-Macon right to left. The Generals and Yellow Jackets pretty evenly matched in that first quarter, as Washington and Lee struck first. And it looked like Randolph-Macon was about to put another score on the board, but Presley Egbers, the first-year quarterback, coughs up the football. The Generals have run one offensive play since then, and they currently sit with 2nd down and 11, ball at the Generals' 6-yard line. Speed option to the left side, quick pitch to Kirkland. Kirkland looking for a block from Brees. Kirkland unable to really get the corner, gains about 2, maybe 3 yards on the carry. As Randolph-Macon's defense showing their team speed, flowing from side to side here and slowing down the Generals' rushing attack. Trey Loughlin coming into the ballgame, but he'll go out as a receiver. So early in the season, we saw Jack Pollard as a receiver, now Trey Loughlin. Garrett LaRose asking his quarterbacks to be very versatile. Generals shift from their normal base set to empty. Kirkland and Brees trying to direct one another to where to be. Brees comes in deep motion, and now it seems like there's some confusion on the Generals' offensive side, and the offensive coaching staff for the Generals will call timeout. With the timeout, we'll take a look at some of the first quarter statistics for you. Washington and Lee ran 11 plays for 39 yards. Randolph-Macon 20 plays for 99 yards on offense. We stressed time of possession significantly in the pregame today. Well, it hasn't really shifted much from last week. Randolph-Macon controlling the football for 10 minutes and 21 seconds of the first quarter to Washington and Lee's 4 minutes and 36 seconds. The Generals were 1 of 3 on 3rd down conversions, 1 of 1 on 4th down conversions. Randolph-Macon 0 of 4 on 3rd down conversions, 1 of 1 on 4th down conversions. So 3rd and 8 upcoming for Washington and Lee. Pollard from the shotgun. Back to the base offensive set for Washington and Lee. Pollard back to pass, flush to his right, under duress in the end zone, lets it go as he's got Kirkland open. Kirkland ran across the field and then came back when he saw his quarterback scrambling, and it's Kirkland with kind of an in, then an out, able to make the catch at the 25 and gets out to the 28-yard line. A big pass completion, Jack Pollard to Kobe Kirkland. So 1st and 10 for the Generals after that nice completion by the sophomore quarterback. We'll call it the sophomore connection. Handoff goes to Josh Brees. Brees running up the middle, breaking a few tackles, and he'll spin forward for a gain of about 4 yards.
Josh spins and gets brought down across the 30 to 31-yard line.
So Pollard,
by Calvin Whitehead.
only his 2nd passing attempt of the contest after going 2 of 13 last week. 2nd down and 6 upcoming after the Josh Brees 4-yard run. Loughlin stayed in the game at split end. He's out to the left side. Kirkland at the right slot back position. He comes in deep motion, gets the slot back speed sweep, but he's going to be dropped in the backfield. Great penetration by Randolph-Macon's number 43, Eric Harris, flowing up the field to make the stop. Harris has been everywhere. I've called his names a few times here today as he lines up in the middle of the defensive formation, but has read his keys very well in the slot. He's been targeted at mainly the slot back motion, and you can see when Kirkland came in deep motion from the right slot back position, Harris flew that direction. Pollard back to pass, swing pass on the way, and he overthrows Josh Brees. Harris there once again in coverage as Pollard misses Brees, and it's probably a good thing as Harris had Brees teed up. So here comes Bo Sheridan for Washington and Lee for the second time today. Sheridan's first punt went 47 yards. Line of scrimmage for the Generals is the 32. Foster back to return. He's standing at his own 30-yard line. Sheridan will kick this one away from about the Washington and Lee 21. Limited rush, and Sheridan gets a nice high end-over-end, or I should say spiral away. Kind of not a tight spiral, but a spiral nonetheless. Foster fields it at the 32, dances forward across the 35 to about the 37-yard line. And that's where Randolph-Macon's offense will start their first offensive possession of the second quarter. So the Yellow Jackets defense does not allow Washington and Lee to capitalize on Presley Egber's fumble deep in the red zone. And now Egbers will look to bounce back as he brings the Yellow Jackets offense back out onto the field. Egbers in the first quarter, 6 of 8 passing for 32 yards. He also carried the ball 4 times for a net yardage of 26 yards. The first year operating from the shotgun, turns, hands to Frederick. Frederick working out to the outside and is going to be strung out and dropped. Minimal gain on the play for Frederick. Prior to that carry, in the first quarter, Frederick 8 carries, 41 yards, still averaging 5.1 yards per carry. So incredibly consistent for the senior running back for Randolph-Macon. Frederick from Anger, North Carolina. Second down and 10 upcoming. Wide side of the field is the offense's right side. Frederick in the backfield alongside Egbers. Egbers throws the out route to the right side. It's complete to his man. He's got it. It's Trey Owens on the reception, and Owens will have enough for a Randolph-Macon first down. Just a nice simple route from Owens. Ran 8 yards forward, broke it out to the outside, and then was able to pick up a couple of extra yards after receiving the football. Dean Johnson on the stop for Washington and Lee. So first and 10 for Randolph-Macon at the Yellow Jackets' 49-yard line. 11:32 to go in the first half. It's Washington and Lee 7, Randolph-Macon 7. Egbers from the shotgun. 3 receivers to the left side of the formation. Handoff goes to Frederick. Frederick running up the middle. And Frederick able to power forward for a gain of about 5, maybe 6 yards. And that's what Randolph-Macon wants to do against this Generals defense. Control the ball, control the clock, wear down the Generals defense. They saw Bridgewater have success with it a week ago. Bridgewater, though, it was more short passes. Today, for Randolph-Macon thus far, it's been running the football. It keeps this game moving at a pretty quick clip. Egbers from the shotgun. Frederick directly behind him in a pistol-like formation. Frederick gets the handoff, looking for his lead blocker, being very patient, similar to Le'Veon Bell back there. And after all of that, Frederick gains 2 on the carry. He was looking to follow Robbie Owens, number 83, a tight end who was shifted more like a fullback on that setup, and Frederick was delayed in looking for the hole to form. Nonetheless, it will be 3rd down and 2 upcoming. Ball in Washington and Lee territory at the 43-yard line on the near side hash. Offense's wide side is the right side of the field. Egbers from the shotgun. Quarterback draw upcoming as Egbers on the keeper will have enough for the first down, but he's met by 3 Generals at the 40, falls forward to the 39-yard line. On the stop for Washington and Lee was number 30, Andrew Browse. In there as well for the blue and white was number 49, Parker Corley. Nonetheless, it's enough for a Randolph-Macon first down, 1st and 10 for the Yellow Jackets at the Washington and Lee 39-yard line. Owens will line up as the flanker to the right side of the formation. Tight end that direction as well. Single split end to the left side for Randolph-Macon. Handoff is to Frederick. Frederick running off the left guard's outer hip, and he'll fall forward for a gain of 1. Good penetration that time by Washington and Lee, as Connor Corbett was in there, and Phil Davis stacked it up inside for the blue and white. So 2nd and 9 upcoming. Randolph-Macon with kind of a loose huddle on offense, still looking to the sideline, 2 play signalers. And then Egbers breaks that loose huddle and brings his team to the line of scrimmage. Split end to the right side of the formation this side. Tight end into the Randolph-Macon left side, the short side of the field. Egbers looking left, still looking left, fires to the flat, and it's complete. Robbie Owens on the reception. Owens will gain 5 yards on just a little tight end hitch route, as Owens was lined up as the tight end to the left side, steps out of bounds at the Washington and Lee 32-yard line. He'll be 3 yards shy of a first down, so it will bring up a 3rd down and 3. Yellow Jackets being methodical here on offense. In no hurry as the clock ticks under 8:35 to play in the first half. 3 eligible receivers to the wide side of the field. That's the right side of the offensive formation. Counter quarterback keeper as Egbers gets a block from Frederick. He'll keep it. He'll get a first down and more as he's across the 25 and down to the Washington and Lee 20-yard line. So just like Washington and Lee's counter option, that time the Yellow Jackets allow Egbers to take 1 step to his right, pull back the right guard to the left side, and the right guard as well as Trey Frederick lead the way for Presley Egbers. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon. In the red zone once again. Last time Randolph-Macon was down here, unfortunately for their first-year quarterback, he fumbled the football away. I formation behind Egbers as he goes under center. Handoff is to Frederick, trying to get outside the left tackle, unable to do so, as penetrating into the backfield for Washington and Lee was number 90, Jay Roberts, who makes the stop for the blue and white. Gain of 2 on the play for the senior running back for the Yellow Jackets. 2nd and 8 upcoming. Offense's wide side is the right side of the field. Yellow Jackets break the huddle with 15 on the play clock. Empty formation. 3 eligible receivers to the right side of the formation, 2 to the left. Now Frederick comes in cross motion. Egbers fakes the handoff to Frederick, will keep it and run to the left side of the set. And he'll get across the 15 down to the 14. Tackled on the play by Washington and Lee's Robert Poindexter, the first-year defensive lineman. He'll bring up a big 3rd down and 4 for the Generals defense. I mentioned earlier the bend but don't break strategy, certainly being tested here in the contest. With Randolph-Macon controlling the time of possession thus far today, the Generals defense being forced on the field for long periods of time. The difference between last week and this week is, given the huddle and the amount of time that the Yellow Jackets stay in the huddle, it's not as fast tempo. Egbers fakes the handoff to Foster, and it's Egbers running up the middle. He'll have near first down yardage, and yes, it is a first down, I should say, as he's across the 10 and has the first down. So 1st and goal from the 10 for Randolph-Macon. Egbers bringing his team out of the huddle. Empty set once again. Flanker and tight end to the left side of the formation. 3 receivers to the right side. Frederick comes in cross motion. Egbers fakes the handoff to Frederick and then is buried. The Generals changing their defensive scheme as Poindexter saw when the motion came, I'm going to fire the blitz, and Poindexter forgot about Frederick coming across and went right for the quarterback, and Egbers is buried. A loss of 6, as before Egbers could really even take a step forward, he is dropped in the backfield. So 2nd down and goal for Randolph-Macon. Ball now at the 16-yard line. Officially, they'll spot him at the 15, so the nose of the football at the 15. So 15 yards to go. Even set with 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Egbers from the shotgun, Frederick offset to his right. Generals with 4 down linemen. Egbers back to pass. firing over the middle, and it's almost picked off. Sam Murphy got his hand on it in his drop from his middle linebacker position and able to get a left paw on the football, but it falls to the turf incomplete. So it will be 3rd down and goal. Almost a huge play by the junior linebacker Sam Murphy from Henrico, Virginia. So 3rd and goal upcoming. 5:03 to go in the second quarter. It's Washington and Lee 7, Randolph-Macon 7. And with the play clock under 10, Randolph-Macon will call a timeout. That's their second timeout of the contest, and so we'll take a timeout as well. You're listening to Generals Football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington.
Is that a faucet running?
That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink.
What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up the air we breathe.
I didn't know the trees were so amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to live action in Ashland, Virginia. 3rd and goal upcoming for Randolph-Macon from the Washington and Lee 15-yard line, as Randolph-Macon just used its second timeout of the contest. So 1 timeout remaining for either team here in the first half. I should have said second timeout of the first half. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Generals with just 3 down linemen this time, and they will rush only 3. Egbers back to pass, looking for the back corner of the end zone, and it's caught inbounds for a touchdown. Hauling it in was number 19, DeAndre Gill. He jumped up over Owen Roberts. Roberts looked to push him out of bounds. There was some confusion. There's no replay in Division III college football. That one was extremely close, folks. I don't know how close to tell you. He was in the back corner of the end zone, and it looked like Gill maybe got 1 foot down. But that's enough in college football, and Randolph-Macon now leads 13-7. The point after attempt is up and no good off the foot of Chris Vidal. And so the score remains 13-7 with 4:57 to go before halftime. Well, coming up at halftime, Ben Greer and Jeremy Franklin will chime in regarding the rest of the Washington and Lee sports universe. They'll get you prepped for ODAC tournament championship action that comes your way next week. We talked about it a little bit in Generals Game Day. All of the ODAC tournaments really getting underway. Men's soccer, the first to get underway tomorrow. Volleyball gets underway later this week, as does field hockey and women's soccer. All of the Washington and Lee fall teams will participate in that. The cross-country championships actually going on today. So it's ODAC Championship Series. Or I should say season. ODAC Championship Season. Washington and Lee won't be participating as ODAC football champions this year, but they have the ability to play spoiler. But right now it's Randolph-Macon on top of Washington and Lee by the score of 13-7. Chris Vidal gets set to kick this one away. It's a high end over end kick that Wurtz will field at the 5, brings it across the 10, dances at the 15, and he will be met at the 20-yard line.
Alex Wurtz returns the kick and is hit.
Making the tackle was Kyle Ringley for Randolph-Macon. And so the offense will go to work with 80 yards to go, looking to retake the lead, even the score, you name it. Both of those possibilities are in the cards on this offensive drive. Jack Pollard at quarterback, Alex Wurtz the option back, Kobe Kirkland and Jimmy Johnson are the 2 slot backs. It's Kirkland coming in cross motion from his right slot back position. Handoff goes to Alex Wurtz. Wurtz running straight up the middle, and he'll get brought down at the 25-yard line. So a gain of 5 by the sophomore option back. Trey Lachlan also in the ball game, playing split end currently for the Generals.
6-yard gain on the play, 2nd down and 4.
Lachlan will line up at the left split end this time. That's the wide side of the field for the Generals as they go left to right here in quarter number 2. Pollard from the shotgun. Kirkland comes in deep motion. Triple option action as Pollard unable to go anywhere with the football as it's well played by Randolph-Macon. The Yellow Jackets had a guy on the pitch man, and then Harris flying up the field to tackle Pollard in the backfield for a loss. There is a flag on the play.
Encroachment on the defense, number 4. 5-yard penalty, play results, and a first down.
So encroachment called on Randolph-Macon. There isn't a number 4 on the field, so not quite sure who the penalty was on. Nonetheless, it will be 1st and 10 for the Generals after that penalty. Ball at the 31-yard line. Empty set. Lachlan comes in deep motion. Speed option to the left side with Lachlan as the pitch guy. Pollard will keep it himself, though, and get across the line of scrimmage and get close to the 35-yard line. Looks like he'll be down at the 34-yard line.
3 on the play, 2nd down and 7.
So 2nd down and 7 after the 3-yard run by Pollard. 3:43 to go in the first half. It's Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7. 2nd down and 7 upcoming as Pollard operates from the shotgun. Johnson comes in cross motion from his left slot back position. Counter handoff going back to the left as Wirtz gets the carry. And Wirtz, dragging a couple of defenders with him, gets out to the Washington and Lee 37-yard line. A gain of 3 yards on the carry. And Drew Richardson's going to come into the ballgame at quarterback. Jack Pollard will come off the field for a moment. 3rd and 4 upcoming. The last time we saw Richardson on the field, he ran some quarterback power. Empty set as Richardson at the helm. Wirtz, the split end on the right side. Kirkland comes in deep motion. Richardson on the keeper, and Richardson running forward, and he will be short of the first down by about a yard, maybe 2. Gets out to the 39-yard line.
And he's brought down short of the 40-yard
and now
line.
Bo Sheridan will come out onto the field. Not sure if I love this play call here, as Pollard has had success throwing the football, although in a limited sample size today. Richardson short of the first down by only about a yard. If you're going to bring Richardson in on 3rd down, go for it on 4th down. Generals playing the role of spoiler this year, and if they're able to get the first down, they keep the clock moving and keep the march down the field. Nonetheless, head coach Garrett LaRose will send Bo Sheridan out onto the field to kick this one away. Foster back deep to return for Randolph-Macon. A high spiraling kick that Foster will fair catch at the 19-yard line. So a nice kick by Bo Sheridan to flip the field. And Randolph-Macon's offense will come back out onto the field with 2:05 to play in the first half, leading Randolph-Macon Randolph-Macon leading Washington Lee by the score of 13-7. So the Generals defense would like to get a quick stop, give their offense one more chance before halftime. Washington and Lee will be receiving the second half kickoff. Egbers brings his offense out onto the field. 4 wide receivers set, 2 to either side of the formation. Frederick alongside of him in the backfield to his left. Handoff goes to Trey Frederick, and Frederick will break one tackle in the backfield, that of Phil Davis, but then is wrapped up by Sam Murphy after a gain of 2. Brings up 2nd down and 8.
20 out to the 21-yard line. Gain of a couple on the play.
Under 2 minutes to play before the break. 2nd down and 8. Ball at the 21-yard line. Handoff goes to Frederick, and Frederick is going to be swallowed up in the backfield. Beating his block and making the tackle was Andrew Frailer, the junior defensive end for the Generals, and now Washington and Lee will burn its last timeout of the first half and hopes to get the ball back. So we'll take a timeout as well with the score, Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Ashland, Virginia. Generals football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington. It's Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7, but a big 3rd down and 7 upcoming for both Randolph-Macon and the blue and white defense. The Generals just called a timeout, looking to get the ball back one more time before halftime. Randolph-Macon thinking otherwise. Empty formation as Egbers operates from the shotgun. Quarterback draw. He'll run up the middle and slides down just shy of the first down. Slides at the 28-yard line. That's where the officials will spot him. Had to get to the 29 for a first down.
Runs the ball out to the 28-yard line.
And so now the question is whether Randolph-Macon will take a timeout here before they punt it away, as there's 1:10 and counting on the game clock, 22 and counting on the play clock. 4th and 1 upcoming. So Gavin Stone, the punter, on to kick this one away. Safe punt formation for the Generals, as back deep to return for Washington and Lee was Kyle Wood. And now Pedro Aruza, the head coach for Randolph-Macon, will call a timeout, stopping the clock with 47.1 seconds to play before halftime. We'll keep it here in the booth. I'm Andy McEnroe. Thanks for joining us today for Generals football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington, live stream today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of Generals football this season. Still 2 more games to go. Next week, live video and audio coverage of the home finale as the Generals wrap up their home schedule against the newest member of the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, Southern Virginia. And then the final audio broadcast of Generals football for 2019 will be on November 16th against Shenandoah. Stone on the punt this one away. A high spiraling kick that Wood will run over and catch at the 32, and he will be tackled immediately. On the coverage for Randolph-Macon was Calvin Whitehead, and Whitehead wrapped up Wood as he was catching the football and slung him to the turf. So the Generals offense will come back out onto the field with 39.6 seconds to play before the break. We may see the air attack from Jack Pollard as the Generals down by 6. Empty set. Pollard is the quarterback. Josh Priest, the split end to the right side. Ty Powell in the slot. Kirkland comes in deep motion. Generals run speed sweep to the left, and Jack Pollard is swallowed in the backfield. A swarm of Randolph-Macon Yellow Jackets in there to make the stop. Leading the charge was Tavian Anderson for Randolph-Macon.
On the stop for the Yellow Jackets.
And that may be all she wrote, as it looks like the Generals may be content to not run a play as the game clock at 12 seconds. And it seems like that will be the case, as offensive coordinator Bobby Jones points to the locker room as he called out the signal to his quarterback. And that'll be all she wrote for the first half. So at halftime, it's Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7. We'll be back to break down some first half statistics for you. But for now, I turn the reins over to Jeremy Franklin and Ben Greer, who will help get you set for all the Washington and Lee sports action coming up this week. ODAC Championship Week in Lexington and throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
It's halftime of today's football broadcast on WLUR. I'm Ben Greer along with Jeremy Franklin here to preview Generals' upcoming postseason play across fall sports. And Jeremy, let's start with volleyball. The Generals are riding a hot ODAC streak into the ODAC tournament next week, but first they're making a trip down to Georgia this weekend for the Emory National Invitational with an opportunity to play 2 of the country's top 10 teams. How important are these kind of tune-up games for the Generals, and how do you see them faring come ODAC tournament?
Well, I've talked with both Brian Snyder and Courtney Berry, the star junior middle for Washington and Lee, about the Emory tournament, seeing number 9 Berry yesterday, seeing the defending national champions Emory today. And one of the big things they're looking at is speed of play. The top teams in volleyball want to play at a very fast pace, and that can only help the Generals for what they're going to see in the ODAC tournament. This has been a weird year in a sense for Washington and Lee within the ODAC, just because we're accustomed to seeing the Generals and the 1 or 2 or 3 spot in the conference standings. They're going to most likely tie for third, but end up as the number 5 seed and have to travel probably to Bridgewater in the conference quarterfinals this coming Wednesday night. But this is a Washington and Lee team that is loaded with talent. We mentioned Courtney Berry, who's had another stellar year. Bryn Gould has had maybe a Conference Player of the Year caliber season. And throughout the course of 2019, we've seen the emergence of some other players stepping up for Washington and Lee. Ashley Webb has taken over at setter. Leah Green and Katie Blaine, who weren't even on the floor early in the year, are now starting for Washington and Lee. And the Generals have gotten progressively better. They'll get some good tests this weekend, and I think be ready to make a run in the conference tournament.
Let's head over to men's soccer, where the Generals heads into ODAC play this weekend with a match to start off against Virginia Wesleyan, who handed the Generals their only conference loss of the season. Do you think the Generals can get their revenge on the Marlins and take on the ODAC tournament?
I certainly think they can, and this is going to be a very motivated Washington and Lee team. In one sense, playing Virginia Wesleyan in the quarterfinals is the best possible opponent for W&L because they're not going to overlook a team that beat them just 2 weeks ago. It was a funky kind of game in Virginia Beach. The Marlins had one shot on goal, which was their goal early in the second half. The Generals had 12. They controlled the game and just could not score. But Washington and Lee has had a couple of really good games offensively, 5 goals in back-to-back contests against Guilford and Eastern Mid-Night. I think the offense is clicking. Defending conference champions, they're the favorites, even though they're not the number 1 seed. They view themselves as the team that everybody is looking up at that has to beat if they want to win an ODAC championship.
Heading over to the women's side of the ball, at 15-0-2 overall and 8-0-1 in the conference, the women's soccer team has had a regular season for the record books, and with one regular season game left against Bridgewater, the Generals certainly have an opportunity to complete this undefeated season. Do you think the Generals can pull it off, and how do you think they fare against maybe the conference's other undefeated team, Randolph-Macon, who the Generals did not face in the regular season, as well as a Virginia Wesleyan team who handed the Generals their only conference draw?
Well, first things first, the game at Bridgewater is going to be a tough one for Washington and Lee. The Eagles haven't had quite the year in 2019 that they did last year when they won the ODAC regular season title and went to the national tournament, but that's still a very good BC team, and I know the Generals are not taking anything for granted on the road this afternoon. If they can finish out undefeated, most likely they'll go in as the number 2 seed. They won't go any lower than 2. They've already clinched a top 2 finish in the ODAC in the regular season, but yes, Virginia Wesleyan's good. One of the possible quarterfinal opponents for Washington and Lee is Lynchburg, which has had a down year by their extremely high standards. The Generals beat them at the end of September, but that would be crazy to think that you get the number 2 seed and then Lynchburg is your opponent in the first round of the conference tournament. So there's a lot of work to be done for the Generals. They're not getting much respect from the pollsters. They're not even on the board in the NCAA regional rankings, so that tells me there's not an at-large bid in the running for Washington and Lee. They have to win the ODAC tournament. If that means going to Randolph-Macon and beating the Yellow Jackets, so be it. I would love to see that kind of matchup. As you mentioned, we didn't get to witness that during the regular season with the conference's unbalanced schedule. Maybe they're on a collision course, but there are a lot of other very good teams in the way of both the Yellow Jackets and the Generals come tournament time.
And looking at field hockey, sitting at third in the conference at 5-2 in conference and 8-7 overall, Generals field hockey finds themselves with one more regular season matchup with Bridgewater. We've mentioned kind of the mammoth of an out-of-conference schedule the Generals played early in this year, and do you think this young team is really starting to see the payoff from those games?
I think so. They've had a couple of tough ODAC defeats against the other 2 top teams in the conference, Lynchburg, which has already won the regular season title, and then Shenandoah scored in the final minute to beat W&L 2-1 in Winchester on Wednesday night. One big thing for the Generals that we did not see last year is they've had success away from home, so they're hoping to get a senior day win against Bridgewater today, win their ODAC quarterfinal at home against Tuesday. It might be the Eagles again based on the way the seedings shake out. But Washington and Lee has won 5 games away from Lexington this season. And if they want to win an ODAC title, they've got to win 2 more away from Lexington, a neutral site game in the semifinals, probably against Shenandoah, and then the championship game at Lynchburg. So the Generals, I think, yes, they are seeing the rewards of that tough schedule. They've gotten better throughout the season. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together for the tournament.
And, with fall postseason, it means that we're knocking on the door of winter sports getting started, and with basketball, we look at the women's team, and the poll came out this week. The women's basketball team has finished picked second in the conference behind Guilford after returning the majority of their team, including 3 all ODAC selections in Taylor Casey, Aaron Hughes, and Andy Smithy last year. They add a lot to that as well this year with a talented freshman class and a junior transfer from Emory and Lynn Johnson. Can the Generals meet these high expectations laid out for them this season, and can they get back to what they were so close to winning last year?
I'm excited to see where Christine Clancy's team goes in 2019-20, and I think one of the best things that could have happened for the Generals for this year was how last season ended. You came so close to the program's second ODAC title. You got upset in the championship, a game that the Generals feel they should have won as the 3 seed against the number 8 Shenandoah. That has to have provided some great motivation, some fuel for the Generals this offseason to build off of what they did last year, tying the school record with 19 wins, but to try to take that next step come March in the ODAC championship in Salem.
And on the mid side of things, it's a slightly different story, being picked tied for 5th to start the year after losing 2 general greats in Roy McMillan and Devin Kearns, as well as one of the team's real leaders in Alex Starr. But there's still a lot of excitement around this team, around this freshman class, and there are a lot of great returning pieces too. Inside, you have Curtis Mitchell and Mark Krogan, who are as solid as they can come. Kevin Dinnan, one of the best 3-point shooters you could ask for, and guys like Mark Lamandola, who with another year under his belt should be really strong. And you expect someone like William Brueggemann to kind of take the scoring lead this year, but what are your expectations for this men's team, and do you expect them to step up and rise to the occasion?
I think they will. I don't know what that means in terms of wins. When all is said and done, the ODAC is a very tough conference when you look at Guilford and Randolph-Macon in the national polls in the preseason, and lots of other talented teams, whether it's Roanoke or Lynchburg. There's so many good squads in the ODAC in men's basketball. But I don't see a major step back. I know you lost McMillan and Kearns and Starr. That's a great senior class. I think you put it exactly right. Roy and Devin are among the all-time leaders, and Alex, even though the numbers weren't there, meant so much to this basketball team. But you've got the returning ODAC Defensive Player of the Year in Curtis Mitchell, a rim protector on the inside, 2 great scoring threats in Brueggemann and Dinnan, and we'll see how some of the other guys like Lamandola, like Tevin Panchel, how this first-year class develops, how those guys step up. And what I do think is that the Washington and Lee team that we see in November is going to be a lot different than the one we see in February.
Absolutely. And to close it out, we have the cross country competing in the ODAC championships today, both the men's and women's squads, and they have 2 weeks until the regionals in Memphis. How do you see both of these teams doing in the ODACs today and come regionals?
Well, our segment will be airing after the ODAC races have been run down in Salem. The Generals are hoping to repeat as conference champions on both the men's and the women's side. But the event, the race of the season for cross country is that regional meet. It's in Memphis this year. I believe both WNL teams are flying out there, which is a little unusual for a regional meet. Normally it's much closer to Lexington, but Rhodes is the host this year, so the far edges of that southeast region. The Generals on both sides have designs on a top 2 finish, which means automatic qualification for the national championship meet. And if that doesn't happen, maybe an at-large in the works for either team, maybe some individual qualifiers. But the ODAC championship is important. It's the bellwether for Washington and Lee. But again, that regional meet is the one that dictates just exactly how we view a cross-country season.
Absolutely, and now it's time for my interview with Washington and Lee senior cross-country runner Austin Kinney, where he'll break down the ODAC championships and the regionals that lay ahead. I'm joined today by Washington and Lee senior cross-country runner Austin Kinney. Austin, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Ben.
The Generals have had a busy regular season, including a trip 2 weekends ago to Oberlin and Gettysburg. How do you feel the team has done in these races in this kind of regular season, and how has the regular season prepared the team for the upcoming postseason?
You know, this regular season has been a bit of a wash for us, just in the performances that we've had. It's not that we don't have the talent. We have plenty of talent on our team. Just on the day, we haven't been able to put those 5 runners together to get a good performance out of it. We've had 2 or 3 do very well at one time and at one race, but never at one time have we had all 5. So we're hoping that as we head towards postseason, we're able to have those mishaps kind of end, and so that we can have everyone together on the line and do well.
Sure, and kind of going with that, the ODAC championships are tomorrow. Do you feel like the team is close to kind of putting it together and finding those 5 runners, or what are the team's expectations going into tomorrow?
The expectations are to win again. This would be our 5th straight ODAC conference championship, and so we're trying to keep that streak going. And I think that those mishaps are kind of behind us now. Everyone's looking pretty smooth moving forward and going into Salem tomorrow. So we're looking for a good performance out of that.
And you mentioned Salem. Can you talk a little bit about just that course and what you sort of expect from the course tomorrow that you'll be running on?
Sure. We ran at this course for the ODAC preview late September, I think, right around then. And so we've been on the course. It's very flat, so it should be fast. Though the past 2 days it's been just pouring down there. And since it's so flat, we think it's probably going to be puddling up pretty bad. So it might be a little muddy course, a little gritty out there, but still should be fast.
And how does, with the a course being muddy and kind of being like that, what does it change, I guess, in the runner's mindset going into that when obviously you'd probably prefer a dry, fast course,
yeah.
but what kind of is there anything different that goes into the preparation of the mindset in a course with tougher conditions?
I don't think much changes. I think it's just knowing that everyone's going to be racing on the same course and understanding that, it might suck for us. You might get a little slippery, but everyone's experiencing that, and so everyone's on the same course in the same conditions, and so you just got to be willing to accept that and push a little harder than the guy next to you.
Sure. And, with the South and Southeast Regional coming up in 2 weeks, how important, obviously you want to focus on the ODAC Championship, but how important is it to be able to build on that and, kind of set a tone in this ODAC Championship for the regionals?
Right. We're hoping to use this ODAC Championship as a springboard into that regionals performance. I think confidence might have been a little low during those regular season races, and so we're hoping to use this win, especially against Lynchburg College, that's our main rival in this meet, and use that as a confidence booster going into that regionals meet where we'll be facing, very steep competition with Berea and Emory especially, and just use that as momentum moving forward to that regionals meet.
Yeah, and with the regionals meet, what are the team? You mentioned the steep competition. What are the team's expectations in the regionals, and how do you hope it sets you guys up for the NCAAs?
Right now, for us to qualify for nationals, I think we would need to take one of those top 2 positions to get an automatic qualifier. Our regular season record isn't showing much chance of getting an at-large bid, so we're kind of just laying it all out there, being risky, and going for it and see what happens. If nothing comes from the team performance, we're hoping to send at least a few individuals to go through.
Sure. And you mentioned it's maybe been a frustrating regular season, but at the end of the day, each team sets goals at the beginning of the season. And do you feel like those goals that were set way back in probably August or maybe even before, do you feel like those are still attainable for this team overall?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We, it's a process, this cross-country season, and you can run fast in September, but it's all about who can run fast in November. And so, every day is a new day for us. And so if you weren't feeling great at one of those previous races, you can step forward and do really well in the next one. And that's the beauty of the sport. You always have another opportunity at it. And down the line, I think just, outside of our top 7, our whole crew has just seen incredible performances moving forward.
And as you kind of enter your last month running cross country for Washington and Lee, what are you always going to remember about this team and about your 4 years competing for the generals?
I would say it's such a gritty sport. I mean, the whole goal of the sport is how much pain can you put yourself in, really. And so I'll remember the relationships that you form through that kind of pain, and just kind of like the satisfaction knowing that your hard work, working with others, and running for each other paid off at the end.
And kind of going off that to close us out here, was there a specific moment in your 4 years where you had faced that kind of toughest obstacle, I guess, in your running? You mentioned it's a tough sport. It really puts you to the test mentally and physically. Was there a specific moment that really put you to the test more than any other?
There was one race during my sophomore year, so what would that be, 2017 probably, indoor track, when we had our indoor 3K, and we were down 12 points going into that race, and we were able to come out with a +2 victory out of that race, and so we were able to take 1, 2, 4, 5 or something like that. And it was just gritty because everyone else had already run earlier that day, and so it was just who has the most guts going into that race. And so that was a really satisfying memory for me, knowing that collapsing across the line, it worked out, and then we were able to take the dub.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good luck in ODACs and beyond, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Ben.
And welcome back live to Generals Football on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. Sorry for a little bit of feedback there as we kicked back into our live coverage. We're at halftime. It's Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7, as the Yellow Jackets just came back out onto the field. And the Generals still not out of the locker room yet. Special thanks to Ben Greer and Jeremy Franklin for that great halftime segment, getting you set for all the ODAC action coming your way this week and into the winter season. Special thanks also to all the fans out there listening. Special call out to Devin Davidson and Jenna Walls for chiming in here to me at halftime. If you'd like to get your shout out on the air today and you don't know my cell phone, don't worry, you can tweet at us at First Team BCast on Twitter. I'll let you know what's going on here. It's now time to take a look at some of the first half statistics. As I noted, Randolph-Macon on top of the Generals 13-7. We focused a lot on time of possession in our pregame show, and frankly, Randolph-Macon has dominated the time of possession. They've had the ball for 19 minutes and 24 seconds to 10 minutes and 36 seconds for the Generals. Randolph-Macon has also run more plays on offense, similar to what Bridgewater did a week ago to Washington and Lee. 37 offensive plays for 170 yards. Washington and Lee 21 offensive plays for 80 yards. The Generals just 61 yards rushing, 19 yards through the air. Randolph-Macon has run the ball effectively, 106 yards on the ground, another 64 through the air. Randolph-Macon has also converted on third down, 4 of 9 on third down conversions, 2 of 6 for the Generals. And when in the red zone, Randolph-Macon have converted. That's the best way to say it. 2 of 3 for the Yellow Jackets in the red zone. Their one misconversion was the Presley Egbers fumble. Taking a look at some of the individual statistics for both Washington and Lee and Randolph-Macon. Drew Richardson is the leading rusher for the Generals in the first half. 3 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown. His one long 22-yard touchdown run. Kobe Kirkland, 5 carries for 16 yards. Alex Wirtz, 2 carries for 10 yards. Josh Brees, 3 carries for 5 yards. Jack Pollard, 1 of 3 throwing for 19 yards. For Randolph-Macon, Trey Frederick has led the way, 15 carries for 55 yards. Presley Egbers with 10 carries for a net yardage of 51 yards and a touchdown. Egbers is also 9 of 12 throwing for 64 yards and a touchdown. His favorite target thus far today, Jordan Foster with 3 catches for 5 yards. DeAndre Gill, 2 catches for 17 yards. That pretty much wraps up the statistics for the first half. How we got to the score? Well, Washington and Lee scored first with 10:29 to play in the first quarter. That aforementioned Drew Richardson touchdown run made it 7-0. And since then, it's been 13 unanswered points for Randolph-Macon. Rounding out the halftime show, as both Ben and Jeremy got you set for it, some score updates. And women's field hockey for the Generals, they currently lead Bridgewater 2-0 in the fourth quarter. In women's soccer, at halftime, it's Bridgewater 2, Washington and Lee 1. The ODAC scoreboard has it falling as such for football, that is. Southern Virginia all over Guilford, 23-0. Bridgewater on top of Emory and Henry, 21-3. And Ferrum and Shenandoah knotted at 14. Both teams have retaken the field. And if you ask me what the key in the second half is for Washington and Lee, it's to find a rhythm on offense. Josh Brees just 3 carries for 5 yards, and he was my player to watch coming into today's matchup. And so as a result, they have to find a way to establish Josh Brees, establish the inside run, and really that comes to the offensive line. They have to challenge themselves to win the battle in the trenches. If Washington and Lee can be successful, sustain a drive here to start the second half, I think the Generals can springboard to a potential victory here today. On defense, the Generals have done a great job in slowing down Randolph-Macon, just 13 points in the first half. Randolph-Macon will be going left to right here on your radio dials to start the second half. Washington and Lee receiving the kickoff from Chris Vidal, going right to left. It's Alex Wirtz fielding the ball on the run at the 15, runs straight up the gut across the 20, 25, out across the 35, and brought down at the 39-yard line. So good field position for Washington and Lee to start the second half. And so Washington and Lee's offense will come back out onto the field looking to make something happen here. Jack Pollard at quarterback. Montgomery Owen now active. After sitting out the first half, he's out at split end on the left side of the formation. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees breaking through. He's got a first down and more into Randolph-Macon territory. Still on his feet at the 40, 35, and spun out of bounds at the 30-yard line. Josh Brees with an over 20-yard run to start the second half and dialing up just what the Generals needed as Washington and Lee able to get their option back going and pick up a big first down here on their first play of the second half. First and 10. Pollard from the shotgun. Kirkland comes across the formation from the right slot back position. Pollard, a three-step drop, throwing the out route to the outside, and it's complete to a diving Montgomery Owen as he hauls in the 9-yard out reception. Montgomery Owen brings a whole different dimension to this offense. Prior to that catch, 25 catches on the season, 644 yards, an average of 25.8 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns, averaging 92 receiving yards per game. Not having him in the first half was a big loss for the Generals. Pollard from the shotgun, triple option, running to the right side, unable to get beyond the first contact, but does pick up positive yardage and a first down for the Generals. On the tackle for Randolph-Macon was Josh Long, the linebacker. First and 10 for the Generals in the red zone for the first time today. Ball spotted at the Randolph-Macon 19-yard line. Pollard from the shotgun fakes the handoff to Kirkland, trying to run the quarterback counter, and is going to be dragged down in the backfield. Busting through was Tyler DeBerry to make the stop for Randolph-Macon. Loss of 3 on the play brings up a second down and 13 for Washington and Lee. The Generals heading in the wrong direction after finding themselves in the red zone for the first time today. Pollard from the gun, Brees directly behind him. Johnson, the left slot back, comes in deep motion. Handoff is to Josh Brees, and this time Brees is bottled up inside. Good penetration up front, and making the stop for Randolph-Macon was Michael Sheehan, the defensive tackle for the Yellow Jackets. Defensive coordinator for Randolph-Macon barking in the signs as it's 3rd and long, a big play for this Yellow Jacket defense. 3rd and 13. Pollard from the shotgun, empty backfield this time as Brees is split out to the left side of the formation. Montgomery Owen and Jimmy Johnson in the slot on that left side. Pollard back to pass, throws it up for Josh Brees, and it's knocked away. Inside position was attained by Stephen Richardson, the cornerback for Randolph-Macon, and he did not allow Josh Brees to get back inside to make a play on the football. So that'll bring the field goal unit out for Washington and Lee. Trey Lachlan, the holder, Jarrett Wright, the kicker. Wright on the season, 3 of 4, as long as 41 yards. This will be a 39-yard field goal from the far side hash. The right-footed kicker will have to sweep across his body. The snap's a good one. The ball is up. The kick is away. It's long enough. Is it straight enough? No, it is not. Wide to the right. The kick is no good from 39 yards, and the score remains Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7, with 12:20 to play in the third quarter. So a missed opportunity for the Generals after a nice kickoff return by Alex Wirtz and a great opening run by Josh Brees. So now the Generals' defense will be tested once again. Presley Egbers brings his offense out onto the field for the first time in the second half. 1st and 10. Ball at the 22-yard line. Big set as Egbers goes under center. Motions Foster across the formation. Play action pass, looking right, throws it up for grabs, and it's going to be caught at the 45-yard line. Hauled in by number 12, Justin DeLone. In coverage was Matt Dodson. The ball floated up there. It was a great opportunity for the Generals to pick it off, force that turnover that we talked about in the pregame show. But DeLone got behind Dodson, and Dodson never got his head around. So 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon. Tight end and a wing to the right side of the formation. Split end and a slot receiver to the left side of the formation. Handoff goes to Trey Frederick. And Frederick will be bottled up inside after a gain of 1. Out to the Randolph-Macon 46-yard line will make it 2nd down and 9.
Phil Davis on the stop.
Phil Davis for Washington and Lee, the nose guard, making the stop for Washington and Lee. Generals trying to keep this drive from going any further. 2nd down and 9 upcoming, 11:19 to play in the third quarter. Egbers from the shotgun. 2 backs join him in the backfield. Frederick offset to his left. Frederick will get the handoff, running off the right guard's outer hip, tucks it up inside, will get across the 50 and is brought down at the Washington and Lee 48-yard line. Brings up a 3rd down and 3.
8-yard line of the
Randolph-Macon needs to get to the Washington and Lee 45-yard line for a first down.
6 on the play. It's going to be 3rd down and 3.
A big 3rd down upcoming. In the first half, Randolph-Macon was 4 of 9 on 3rd down conversions. Arguably, it could be 2-down territory given that the ball is in the middle of the field and that Randolph-Macon has had such success running the football today. Averaging 4.2 yards per carry, it's Egbers on the quarterback keeper, diving forward, and he's going to be spotted at the 45-yard line. That should be enough for a Randolph-Macon first down, and it is.
Presley Egbers.
So the Randolph-Macon rushing attack converts a first down, and it's 1st and 10 from the Washington and Lee 45-yard line. Ball on the near side hash, so the offense's wide side is the left side of the field. Randolph-Macon breaks the huddle with 16 on the play clock. 10:05 left on the game clock here in the third quarter. 3 receivers to the left side of the formation, a single split end to the right. Handoff goes to Frederick, going to the left side of the formation, tries to stretch for the boundary, now cuts it back in after crossing the line of scrimmage, and will pick up 2 on the carry. Good containment by the Generals as they came in, forced Frederick back to the inside where the help is on the defensive side, and Sam Murphy was able to clean up the mess as he makes the stop for Washington and Lee. 2nd down and 8 upcoming for Randolph-Macon. Generals with 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers in this set, 4 defensive backs. 2 receivers to the right side, a single tight end to the left side. Handoff is to Frederick. He's heading to the left side, and Will Corey busts through the line and makes the stop. It was like a Mack truck meeting a freight train, and the freight train, Will Corey, wins. Wow, what a hit by Will Corey. We talked about it last week in the Bridgewater game. Will Corey missed the first half due to the targeting call on Emery and Henry. He is a game changer for Washington and Lee, folks. And right there, he can show you what he does. Frederick was chopping his feet, reading his blocks, and Will Corey wasn't patient enough to allow Frederick to hit a hole. He busts through the line and makes the stop. 3rd down and 8 upcoming after that big hit by Will Corey. 3 receivers to the right side of the formation. Single split end to the left side. Back to pass is Egbers. 3-step drop. Egbers firing for the skinny post route, and a great play by Kyle Wood to get his right hand in. Egbers was looking in the direction of DeAndre Gill. Gill had inside position, but Wood running step for step gets the right hand in and knocks it away. So 4th down, and most likely a punt upcoming as Gavin Stone, the first-year punter, comes out onto the field. Stone will kick this away from the Randolph-Macon 45-yard line with Montgomery Owen now eligible. He's back to return, standing at the Washington and Lee 10. A high spiraling kick that Owen will fair catch at the 16-yard line for Washington and Lee, and that's where the Generals offense will go to work. Another great defensive stand by the Generals defense. Brendan O'Brien and his team of defensive coaches have to be very proud of how the Generals have played thus far today. Now the offense needs to carry their weight. After scoring on their first offensive possession, the Generals have been shut out thus far today. Pollard at the helm. Wirtz offset to his left. From the shotgun, Wirtz gets the carry, running up the middle, and Alex Wirtz will get out to the 21-yard line, a gain of 3 yards on first down. Will bring up a 2nd down and 7.
He's brought down by Tyler DeBerry.
So 2nd down, they'll give him 4, so 2nd down and 6 upcoming after the Alex Wirtz carry. Pollard taking his time, reading the defense, calls out the signals, identifying the key players on the Randolph-Macon defense. Randolph-Macon 3 down linemen, 2 linebackers crowding the line as well. Counter quarterback keeper, and Pollard able to run it to the right side, get outside, get across the line of scrimmage, out across the 25, and is brought down about a yard shy of the first down marker. So good counter action as Kirkland came in deep motion from his right slot back position. Pollard faked the handoff to him, and then Pollard followed the pulling guard to pick up a Washington and Lee first down. So the Generals' offensive coaching staff trying to get creative here to create some sort of dynamic offensive play. Back in a base formation for Washington and Lee. Pollard at the helm, out of the shotgun. Triple option look going to the left side of the offensive set, and it's Pollard on the keeper, able to avoid the first contact and stumble forward for a gain of 2. Kirkland was the pitch man. Second down and 8 upcoming. Ball spotted at the Washington and Lee 30-yard line. 6:55 to go in the third quarter. It's Randolph-Macon 13, Washington and Lee 7. Second and 8 for the Generals. Ball in the middle of the field. Pollard from the shotgun. 3-step drop, looking to pass, firing deep downfield, and overthrows his intended target, Montgomery Owen. Owen had single coverage as he had gotten behind the first line of defense, and it was just him and Anthony Williams back there. And I would take my bet that Montgomery Owen could have made a play on that football had it been accurately thrown. The sun is in the direction of the receiver's eyes by the way the Generals are going right now. So the Generals going right to left. So when Owen looks back, he's looking back to the right side of this field and into the sun. Pollard from the shotgun. 3-step drop. Looking right. Firing over the middle. And just misses his intended man. Trey Lachlan was in the ball game running the route, and it's just off of Lachlan's fingertips. And Pollard just a little off today, just as he was a week ago. And now the punting unit will have to come out for Washington and Lee. I said it a few games ago, I think Bo Sheridan may be the team MVP. He's done a lot of work for the Generals, and he's done a great job. Coming into the game, averaging 40 yards per kick. But he's done a great job. 10 punts this season inside the 20-yard line. This one he won't have a chance to get there unless he nails it. It's a high spiraling kick that will be fielded and fair caught by Anthony Williams. And the fair catch is officially spotted at the Randolph-Macon 38-yard line, and that's where the offense will go to work. So once again, the Generals defense will try to flip the ball back to their offense and force a turnover. Generals have forced one turnover today on the Egbers fumble. Washington and Lee has also fumbled one to Randolph-Macon. That was the Alex Wirtz kickoff. Egbers from the shotgun. Frederick joins him in the backfield. Play action pass. Egbers looking deep down the left side. Ball's up in the air, and it's incomplete. No flag on the play, despite the Randolph-Macon crowd calling for it. Kyle Wood was in coverage on DeAndre Gill. Gill had a step on Wood. Wood really never did turn his head around, as it was just a straight takeoff down the far sideline, the left side of the offensive set. But the ball a bit underthrown, and so the official may have deemed it uncatchable. Nonetheless, it's second down and 10 for Randolph-Macon. Ball on the far side hash, which means the offense's wide side is the right side of the formation. 3 receivers that direction, a single split end to the left side. Handoff goes to Frederick. Frederick trying to bounce the run out to the left side, and it's going to be strung out and dropped after a gain of only 1, maybe 2 yards. Great team defense by Washington and Lee. Will Corey was there on the stop, as was Jay Roberts for Washington and Lee. Third down and 8 upcoming. Ball at the Randolph-Macon 40-yard line. Yellow Jackets into the huddle with 22 on the play clock, and now they come out. Clock certainly the friend of Randolph-Macon, and the Generals' defense has played tremendous today. 3 receivers to the right side of the formation. Egbers, play action pass, looking left. The ball's tipped at the line of scrimmage and goes up in the air and falls to the turf. Will Corey was coming on the blitz, got his hand on the football, and popped up. Egbers was looking for DeAndre Gill, that skinny post slant route again. Kyle Wood on the coverage, but the ball never got close to it. A great opportunity for the Generals to pick it off, but no General was in the vicinity. Ball falls to the turf, and for the second time in the second half, Gavin Stone will come out for Randolph-Macon. Averaging 36.8 yards per punt, Montgomery Owen back deep to return, standing at the Washington-Lee 22-yard line. Stone, a high spiraling kick that Owen will fair catch at the 24-yard line. Will officially spotted at the 25-yard line. So the first two offensive possessions for either team just go back and forth. No real progress to talk about here. 5:35 to go in the third quarter. The score remains Randolph-Macon 13, Washington-Lee 7. Not a high-scoring affair, but you could characterize this as a heavyweight title fight. Both teams slugging back and forth at one another. A defensive ball game thus far. It's Pollard on the quarterback counter running up the middle, and Pollard is bottled up at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play.
By Michael Sheehan.
Surprised that if they're going to run that type of play, Drew Richardson is not in the ball game. He's had success in limited action today, running the football. 3 carries for 28 yards. Second down and 10. Josh Brees is the option back for Washington-Lee. Kirkland comes in deep motion. Counter back to Brees. A little bit of a confusion and collision in the backfield between Kirkland and Brees. Nonetheless, Josh Brees gets the handoff, spins forward, and gains 9 yards on the carry, about 1 yard shy of a first down. The counter play worked so good that Brees and Kirkland almost ran into one another. It must have confused the Randolph-Macon defense, because it confused me for sure. The ball is snapped, and it's a very disjointed play. Pollard just throws it up to Montgomery Owen. Owen runs underneath of it, catches it, and he's going to score a touchdown. Flag on the play as Pollard is crushed in the backfield. Flag at the line of scrimmage as well. There was movement up front. The ball was snapped and fumbled. Pollard just threw it up to Owen, and 2 playmakers made a play. And they allowed Pollard to get destroyed. No flag on that. Now the officials will get together. It's a touchdown right now, folks.
On the defense, the penalty is declined. Touchdown.
So it looked like the center, Kyle Perrell, for the Generals, saw someone in the zone, snapped the football. Pollard wasn't ready for it. Encroachment was called. Pollard picks up the loose ball, throws it up for grabs, and Montgomery Owen turns on the Jets and runs underneath of it. The score is tied at 13 with the point after touchdown upcoming. The snap's a good one. Lachlan, the holder, puts the ball down, and Jarrett Wright bangs it through. So just like that, Washington-Lee takes a 14-13 lead with 4:31 to go in the third quarter. Wow. Catch your breath, folks. That was crazy. And it just shows you that anything can happen in this game. We'll keep it here in the booth. If you have something to say about that play or really anything that's going on today, you can tweet at us at First Team BCast. It's on the video screen if you happen to be watching the audio coverage on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. Live today also on 91.5 FM WLUR. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. Maybe you've got the Randolph-Macon video cast on and you can flip over the audio to us. And really, to us, that's the royal us. Just me here today, Andy McEnroe, riding solo. Thanks for joining us, joining me. Maybe you're us. You're part of us. It's a family affair here today. Washington-Lee football, the Generals on top, 14-13. Jarrett Wright to kick this one away. Back deep to return is Anthony Williams for Randolph-Macon. Williams will field it at the 5. Brings it across the 10, running forward at the 20, and is met by a wall of Generals at the 25-yard line. On the stop for the blue and white was F.J. Hogue, who saw a lot of action last week on defense and makes a nice special teams tackle there for head coach Garrett LaRosa's squad. So now Washington-Lee's defense playing with the lead for the first time since the first quarter when the Generals were leading 7-0. The Generals' defense have stopped Randolph-Macon on their first 2 possessions of the second half. Now on the third possession, handoff is to Frederick on a draw play. Frederick bouncing to the outside, working the sideline in front of the Randolph-Macon bench, and it really takes the entire Generals defense to push Trey Frederick out of bounds after a gain of 10 yards. Frederick doing a great job. He is a workhorse for the Yellow Jackets. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon. Ball at the Randolph-Macon 36-yard line. Egbers from the shotgun. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Egbers back to pass, quick drop, and it's complete to DeAndre Gill. Gill this time on the right side of the formation, runs the skinny post and is able to haul in the reception and is tackled at the 50-yard line, but that's enough for a Randolph-Macon first down. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon. So 2 plays, 2 first downs on this drive. As the Yellow Jackets looking to find some momentum, down by 1 point. A missed extra point by Chris Vidal after the second Randolph-Macon touchdown is the difference in this contest currently. Egbers from the shotgun, hands to Frederick. Frederick running off the right side, and he'll plow forward for a gain of 3.
Trey Frederick takes the handoff. It's brought down by
Trey Frederick is a workhorse back, senior running back for Randolph-Macon. As he goes, this offense goes. Gains 4 officially, makes it 2nd down and 6. 2:50 to go in the third quarter. It's Washington and Lee 14, Randolph-Macon 13. 2 tight end, 2 flanker set, 1 to either side of the formation. Frederick is the deep back as Egbers goes under center. Generals with 5 down linemen. Play action pass. Egbers bootlegs to the right. Fires for his tight end, Robbie Owens, and it's complete. Owens will have enough for a first down. Tackled by Will Corey immediately, but Owens able to pick up the first down as he's tackled out of bounds at the Washington and Lee 38-yard line.
That's going to be good for another Yellow Jackets first down.
So 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon at the Washington and Lee 38. The crowd starting to get back into this one. Low snap, and Egbers has to fall on it. Tried to pick it up like a shortstop, but couldn't grab it on his first attempt, and the Generals' defense was busting through the line. So Egbers falls on it at the Washington and Lee 42-yard line, a loss of 4 on the fumbled snap.
2nd down.
So 2nd down and 14 upcoming. So the Generals defense catches a first down break, and now the Randolph-Macon offense playing from behind. Check on the out-of-town scoreboard for you. We've got a final in field hockey. Washington and Lee victorious over Bridgewater by the score of 3-1. Generals wrap up their regular season with an overall mark of 9-7, 6-2 in the ODAC. The Bridgewater Eagles 5-13 overall, 3-5 in the ODAC. Checking on women's soccer, where it seems many live stats today across the Presto Sports Network are significantly delayed. It's Bridgewater on top of Washington and Lee 2-1. The Sidearm Sports stats for Washington Lee home contests running smoothly. Timeout on the field called by Randolph-Macon. Their first timeout here in the second half, so they have 2 remaining. Generals with all 3 timeouts remaining, 1:40 to go in the third quarter. It's Washington and Lee 14, Randolph-Macon 13. 2nd down and 14 coming out of that timeout. Generals with 4 down linemen. Randolph-Macon 3 eligible receivers. Play action pass. Egbers steps up in the pocket. Now will look to run. A lot of turf in front of him. Generals defense closing quick, and the first-year quarterback is tripped up as he crosses the 35-yard line down to the Washington and Lee 34-yard line. Picks up a big chunk of yardage, will make it a 3rd down and about 5. So a nice play by the first-year quarterback to make it a manageable 3rd down. Officially, it will be 3rd down and 6. Ball spotted at the Washington and Lee 34. Empty set for Randolph-Macon. 3 eligible receivers to the right side of the formation. A tight end and a flanker to the left side. Wide side of the field is the offense's right side. Egbers changing the play. Generals showing blitz. Egbers back to pass, throws the out route, and it's complete to his tight end. And he'll be about a yard shy of the marker, it looks like, brought down at the 30-yard line. And so it'll be 4th down and 1, and it's decision time for Pedro Aruza and the Randolph-Macon coaching staff. It was Sam Tanner on the reception. And Andrew Ely comes in at quarterback for Randolph-Macon, number 16. He'll operate out of the shotgun. Ely will take the snap, runs forward, and will battle for the first down. A bit of a bigger body as Ely, a sophomore, 6'2", 205 pounds from Apex, North Carolina, and he'll have enough for a Randolph-Macon first down. And so that's going to be the end of the third quarter as the Ely run picks up a Randolph-Macon first down. We'll head to the fourth quarter with the score Washington and Lee 14, Randolph-Macon 13, but the Yellow Jackets on the march. Stay with us. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR 91.5 FM and online today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Day Field on the campus of Randolph-Macon College. Fourth quarter action coming your way between Randolph-Macon and Washington and Lee. It's the Generals on top of the Yellow Jackets by the score of 14-13. Randolph-Macon with no points here in the second half. Washington and Lee with what could be called a fluke touchdown. A fumbled snap where Jack Pollard, the sophomore, picked it up and threw it up for grabs, and Montgomery Owen ran it down and was able to haul it in and do the rest with his legs for a touchdown. It's now Randolph-Macon on the march to start the fourth quarter. 1st and 10 for the Yellow Jackets. Ball at the Washington and Lee 26-yard line. Staying in the ball game at quarterback is Ely, and Andrew Ely carries for 13 yards and a Randolph-Macon first down. So Andrew Ely on the season has only thrown 3 passes, 1 of 3, and 1 of those was intercepted. But running the football, Ely has now 25 carries on the season for over 100 yards. He's staying in the ball game at quarterback. So Ely, the sophomore, one of 3 quarterbacks used this season by Randolph-Macon. Burke Estes started the season as the starter before Egbers took over. Now it's Ely here in the fourth quarter with 3 straight runs from the quarterback position. This time the Generals defense not fooled, and Will Corey busts through and tackles Ely for no gain on the play.
Will Corey.
Ely more of a Tim Tebow-like thus far, at least from what I've seen of him. And what the stats show, and now Ely will come out, and Egbers will come back into the ball game. 2nd down and 10. Ball at the Washington and Lee 15. Empty set with Egbers at quarterback for Randolph-Macon. Frederick in the slot to the left side. 3 receivers to the right side. Now Frederick comes in deep motion all the way across the formation. Egbers stepping up, looking to run, and he's going to be sacked. Coming off the end and making the stop for Washington and Lee was Robert Poindexter, and cleaning it up was Jay Roberts. So Poindexter from the right side of the offensive formation, left side of the defensive formation, comes out as the defensive end, forces Egbers to step up in the pocket, and Roberts was there to help clean it up. A loss of about 4 on the play brings up a 3rd and 15. A big 3rd down upcoming for this Generals defense. Frederick in the backfield alongside Egbers. two receivers to either side of the offensive formation. Handoff is to Frederick on the draw play, and Frederick busts across the 15, down across the 10 to the Washington Lee 8. He will be 3 yards shy of a first down, but it will set up a manageable field goal for Chris Vidal doing the kicking today. Before this contest, Colin Booker had been the primary kicker for Randolph-Macon. Vidal, a junior, had kicked in previous seasons, and now will have the opportunity to allow Randolph-Macon to take the lead. It will be a 25-yard field goal from the middle of the field. The snap's a good one, the ball is up, and the kick is through. So Vidal gives the Yellow Jackets a 2-point lead after the field goal is converted. So it's Randolph-Macon 16, Washington Lee 14, with 12:11 to play in regulation. Stay with us, folks. This is an exciting contest, and it will come down to the wire. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
So Chris Vidal puts 3 more points on the board with the 25-yard field goal. And now he'll do the kickoff duties for Randolph-Macon. It's going to be fielded by Washington and Lee's number 21. That's Zach Smith, the first year on the return, and Smith unable to get out to the 20 as he's tackled at the 17-yard line. And that's where the offense for Washington and Lee will go to work.
Zach brings it out to the 16-yard line.
And so the Generals offense will have Jack Pollard at quarterback. Alex Wirtz in the backfield at the option back position. 1st and 10. Generals going into the sun here in the fourth quarter, going left to right. Handoff is to Kobe Kirkland, trying to run the right side sweep, able to break a tackle. That was Harris who tried to tackle him in the backfield, and Kirkland able to rumble forward for a gain of 8 yards. A great run by Kirkland to avoid the contact and pick up some yardage, because all day Randolph-Macon has done a great job in stopping that play, where the slot back from the left side comes in deep motion, gets the handoff running the right side sweep. Made famous by Brett Murray for Washington and Lee. Pollard from the shotgun, 3-step drop, looking to pass, throws the out route to the left side. It's complete to Owen. Owen makes the defender miss, and nothing but green turf in front of Montgomery. Owen, he will go all the way for a touchdown. Montgomery Owen with another big play, and Washington and Lee retakes the lead. What a route. What a throw. And Washington and Lee now leads Randolph-Macon by the score of 20-16. One-on-one coverage on the outside. Owen with a shake, then a bake on the out route, and did the rest with his legs. Jarrett Wright will come on to attempt the extra point. Trey Lachlan is the holder. The snap's a good one. The ball is down. The kick is up, and it's good.
The kick is up, and it's
with
good.
11:20 to play in the fourth quarter. It's Washington and Lee retaking the lead. Now in control of the contest by the score of 21-16. But we are not done, folks. After a slow start to the second half, the action has picked up. The big play has returned to the Washington and Lee offense. And it's the Generals leading Randolph-Macon by the score of 21-16. What a catch and run by Montgomery Owen. That's on the heels of his last catch and run, a 66-yard completion from Pollard to Owen in the third quarter. That gave the Generals the 14-13 lead. Then Randolph-Macon methodically works down the field and is able to take the lead on a Chris Vidal 25-yard field goal. And there, Montgomery Owen hauling in an outstanding reception. Just a simple out route, a perfect throw by Pollard, well-timed, breaks the tackle of the cornerback, and no one was able to catch Montgomery Owen. Now Jarrett Wright will kick off for the Generals. Wright, a high end-over-end short kick that'll be fielded by Williams at about the 12. Williams across the 15, forward at the 20. Ball comes out at the end, and it's going to be recovered by Washington and Lee. It looked like Williams was bent in an awkward direction. Let's hope he's okay, as he appears to be shaken up and crawling on the ground. The ball popped out. Not sure if Williams' knee was on the ground or not. The Generals jumped on the ball quickly. They're going to say Williams was down, and Williams is hurt. The way he looked when he dropped the football, it almost looked like a knee injury or something, where he was going through a crowd of both Yellow Jackets and Generals trying to run the football. Someone may have been blocked into him or fallen on him, and he looked in pain, dropped the football, which would be a natural reaction. And the officiating crew saying Williams' knee was down. It most likely was down before he dropped the football, and so it will be Randolph-Macon ball coming out of this injury timeout as the training staff attends to Anthony Williams. Gives us an opportunity to check on the Division I college football scoreboard. I would say we'd check the Division III scoreboard, but if they're powered by Presto Sports today, they're not working that well. In the fourth quarter, Michigan on top of Maryland by the score of 38-7. In the fourth quarter, Wake Forest all over NC State 44-10. Just underway, Notre Dame and Virginia Tech knotted at 0. Some finals from earlier today. Baylor defeating, this was on Thursday. Baylor defeating West Virginia 17-14. Other games of note coming your way later today at 3:30 p.m., so just about 33 minutes from now, Georgia and Florida set to square off at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida. The largest outdoor cocktail party. Kansas State and Kansas also playing at 3:30 p.m. in a battle for the state of Kansas. 1st and 10 for the Yellow Jackets after that injury timeout. Presley Egbers at quarterback. Frederick alongside of him in the backfield. Egbers on the keeper, running off right tackle. A big hole, and Egbers with a first down and more. He's across midfield and into Washington and Lee territory. And the first-year quarterback pops off the turf, jumping in the air, very excited about that 30-yard run for the first year. So Randolph-Macon looking to answer Washington and Lee's touchdown. Now have 1st and 10 in Washington and Lee territory at the Generals' 47-yard line. 10:52 to play in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 21, Randolph-Macon 16. Egbers from the shotgun. Frederick directly behind him. Lead back, in front of Frederick. Frederick on the carry. Frederick patient with his blocks, and he'll run forward for a gain of 9. So Trey Frederick, knowing that this is the time of the game where he excels, and it's 2nd down and 1, ball at the Washington and Lee 38-yard line, in the middle of the field, in between the hashes. 2 flankers and a tight end to the left side of the formation. Single tight end to the right side. Frederick in the backfield. He'll get the call. Frederick up the middle, and he'll push the pile forward for 2 yards. That'll be enough for a Randolph-Macon first down. So the Yellow Jackets move the chain twice here on this drive. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon at the Washington and Lee 35-yard line.
Credit Sam Murphy on the stop for the Generals.
And Egbers brings his team out of the huddle. 20 on the play clock, 9:47 on the game clock. Egbers from the shotgun, lead back in front of Frederick. Play action pass, bubble screen complete to the outside. It's Owens, and Owens will run forward after hauling in the football for a gain of 5.
Pass is complete to Trey Owens.
Looked like an RPO type action as Frederick was looking for the handoff. Egbers had his eye on what was happening on the outside and pulled the football and threw the bubble screen. One blocker in front of Trey Owens after he hauled in that pass. Two receivers to either side of the formation. Frederick, the single back, joining Egbers in the backfield. 2nd and 5 upcoming. Handoff to Frederick, running off the right guard's hip. And Frederick will have another first down for Randolph-Macon as he runs forward for a gain of 7. A massive hole opened up that time by the offensive line for Randolph-Macon, doing a great job winning the war in the trenches. 1st and 10 for Randolph-Macon. Ball at the Washington and Lee 23-yard line. Same formation as before, two receivers to either side of the set. Egbers from the shotgun. He'll fake the handoff to Frederick and keep it himself. Egbers weaving through the defense, has the first down, and will finally be dragged down after a gain of 15 yards as Dean Johnson coming from the safety spot to make the stop. But it will be 1st and goal for Randolph-Macon after that 14-yard run. So now the Generals will need another goal line stand, leading by 5 points. Two receivers to either side of the formation. Egbers and Frederick in the backfield. Generals playing man on the outside. They'll bring the blitz. Corey unable to get to Egbers as he came off the edge. Egbers running for his dear life, and coming up to make the stop in the backfield was Carter Govan for Washington and Lee. He'll lose a yard, not much more than that, so it will be 2nd down and goal. 7:52 and counting left in regulation. It's Washington and Lee 21, Randolph-Macon 16. An exciting contest between two ODAC foes today. Two receivers to either side of the formation. Frederick to the left of Egbers as he operates from the shotgun. Generals bring the pressure once again. Throwing for the corner of the end zone is Egbers, and it's incomplete. A back shoulder throw intended for DeAndre Gill. Gill was open for a brief second before Kyle Wood could close on the outside. Might have got a hand on the football. The ball was a bit low as well. It will bring up 3rd down and goal from the 12-yard line. The Generals looking for another goal line stand here today. The Randolph-Macon faithful attempting to cheer their team on. Same set, two receivers to either side of the formation. The ball is on the far hash, so the offense's wide side is the left side. Generals bring the blitz. Egbers looking to run, and a shoestring tackle is made by Washington and Lee's Carter Govan, the sophomore. Egbers gets out across the 10 down to the 8, but no more than that, so it will be 4th and goal from the 8. And so that will bring out the kicking team. Chris Vidal has missed an extra point today, but has made a 25-yard field goal. This one will be a 25-yard field goal again from the far hash. The right-footed kicker sweeps the leg, and it's up and good. So the officials say it's good, and it's now a 2-point ball game as Randolph-Macon cuts into Washington and Lee's lead. The score now stands Washington and Lee 21, Randolph-Macon 19, with 6:47 to go in regulation. We'll take a 30-second timeout and be back with the kickoff. You're listening to Generals Football on WLUR and WLUR All Access.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Dayfield on the campus of Randolph-Macon College. I am Andy McEnroe for Washington and Lee Football. Live coverage on 91.5 FM, WLUR, and WLUR All Access. Chris Vidal with his second 25-yard field goal makes it a 2-point game. He now booms a kickoff into the end zone, and Alex Wirtz will take a knee for Washington and Lee. So the Generals offense will start at its own 25-yard line with the 2-point advantage, looking to control the football. Only 6:47 left to go in regulation. Pollard will be at the helm for the blue and white. Josh Brees back in the ball game at option back. Kirkland and Johnson are the slot backs. Montgomery Owen lined up as the wide receiver to the left side of the formation. Johnson comes in cross motion to the right side. Handoff is to Josh Brees. Brees finds a running lane. He's got the first down and more across the 40. Now across midfield. 45-40, 35-30, 25-20, 15-10. 5, touchdown Washington and Lee. Josh Brees, a 75-yard touchdown run. And Washington and Lee's lead is back out to 8. What a run by Josh Brees. There is not any laundry on the field. Josh Brees, who's been bottled up for much of the season, much of the day, finds a running seam and turns on the Jets. Washington and Lee leads 27-19. Jarrett Wright on to attempt the extra point. Trey Loughlin, the holder. Wright has been perfect today. The ball is down, the kick is up, and it's good. And so just like that, the Generals now lead 28-19 with 6:34 to go. A 9-point advantage for Washington and Lee. A 2-score ball game. No rest for the defense, but I think the defense will take that as Josh Brees, 75 yards to the house. And the Generals are on top 28-19. 6:34 to go in regulation. Washington and Lee looking to play the role of spoiler. Coming into this contest, both Bridgewater and Randolph-Macon were a perfect 5-0 in the conference. Bridgewater would be in the driver's seat. That being said, Bridgewater and Randolph-Macon play next week, next Saturday, for a game that could decide the conference championship. In any event, it probably will decide the conference championship. Jarrett Wright on to kick this one away. Back deep to return is Trey Frederick, the do-it-all, everything back for Randolph-Macon. Wright, a high end-over-end kick that Frederick will field at the 8. He's across the 15, moving forward at the 20, 25, working down towards the General sideline and shoved out of bounds north of the 30 at about the 33-yard line. Not calling it desperation time, but when you see Trey Frederick returning a kickoff for the Yellow Jackets, you know that Randolph-Macon is looking for a big play. The big play has been a friend to the Generals here today. Outside of the first offensive drive, there really haven't been any methodical offensive drives for Washington and Lee. And even that play, even that drive, I should say, ended with a Drew Richardson 22-yard touchdown run. Empty set for Randolph-Macon on 1st and 10. Egbers to the air. It's complete to Owens on the wide receiver bubble screen to the left side of the formation. Good blockers in front of Owens as he weaves across the 40, 45, and out to midfield as he's able to pick up about 16 yards on the reception. Good receiver blocking DeAndre Gill with a nice block on the outside for Randolph-Macon. So it will be 1st and 10 for the Yellow Jackets at the 50-yard line on the near side hash. It being a 2-score game, Pedro Aruza and his staff will have to put the ball in their first-year quarterback's hands, more so than maybe they've done in games past. Egbers from the shotgun, claps to receive the football, looking for Frederick in the flat, and it's batted down. Riley Bartlett, not that tall of an individual, elevating, just 5'10". The senior gets his paw on the football, and it falls to the turf. You've got to like Riley Bartlett. 5'10", 220 pounds from Rockville, Maryland. Gives it his all out there and has become a key contributor on this defense for the blue and white. 2 flankers and a tight end to the right side of the formation. Single tight end to the left side. That's the short side of the field. Egbers on the keeper looking to run, and Egbers on 2nd down and 10 will lower his head and his shoulder and run forward for a gain of 7. Pretty dangerous run when you lower your head like that. I know the football safety experts wouldn't want to see that. Nonetheless, Egbers picks up 7. 3rd down and 3 upcoming. Certainly it's 4-down territory with just 5:25 to go in regulation and it being a 9-point contest. Egbers from the shotgun, 2 receivers to either side of the formation, ball in the middle of the field. Egbers on the quarterback draw following Frederick. He'll have the first down and is across the 40 down to the Washington and Lee 35-yard line. Nice seal block by Trey Frederick. The Generals' aggressive defensive line tendencies hurting Washington and Lee on this drive as Egbers has carried the load for the last 2 plays. Under 5 minutes to go. It's Washington and Lee 28, Randolph-Macon 19. 4 eligible receivers to the right side of the formation. Now coming across and faking the speed sweep is Justin DeLeon, and it's Egbers keeping it once again after faking the DeLeon. Egbers takes a big shot after a gain of 5. His shoulder pad hanging out of the left side of his jersey, but he's back up directing his offense to the line of scrimmage. 2nd down and 5, ball at the Washington and Lee 30. Tight end and a flanker to the left side of the formation. That's where Egbers is looking, firing left, and it's somehow caught on the ground by Owens, who had fallen to the turf. The back judge is saying incomplete. The line judge has it as complete. The back judge coming in, waving it incomplete. And so it's incomplete. The clock will stop at 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Owens had slipped on the break. Somehow the ball ended up in his hands. Looks like it probably skipped in there, and it will be 3rd down and 5. A big 3rd down for both teams. The Generals know that Randolph-Macon will be going for it on 4th down if they're even able to stop the Yellow Jackets here. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Frederick in the backfield to the right of Presley Egbers, the first-year quarterback. Egbers back to pass, 2-step drop, throws over the middle. It's complete to his tight end Tanner, and Tanner will have a first down, tackled by the Generals' number 30, Andrew Browse, down at the Washington and Lee 20. Randolph-Macon quickly to the line of scrimmage. Egbers from the shotgun, hands to Frederick. Frederick running up the middle, and Frederick will weave across the 15 down to the Generals 13. As now Randolph-Macon's offense going to tempo, no huddle style. The offensive line shifting around as the Yellow Jackets line shifts to power. Handoff is to Frederick once again. Frederick running off the left tackle's outer hip, and Frederick will have a first down inside the 10, inside the 5, down to the 4-yard line. 1st and goal with 3:37 to go in regulation, and Washington and Lee will call a timeout as they do not have the right defensive personnel on the field to slow down the rushing attack. We'll take a timeout as well. We're coming to the home stretch of this one. It's Washington and Lee 28, Randolph-Macon 19.
Is that a faucet running?
That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink.
What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up the air we breathe.
I didn't know the trees were so amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
And welcome back live to Dayfield on the campus of Randolph-Macon College. Generals football on 91.5 FM, WLUR, and on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting. I am Andy McEnroe. Currently, the Generals lead by 9, but Randolph-Macon with a 1st and goal from the 4. In the ball game is the sophomore Ely, Andrew Ely at quarterback. He'll take the snap, running off left tackle, looks to bulldoze his way in, and he's down at the 1.
Andrew Ely down to the...
So Andrew Ely, the bigger running quarterback, quickly getting his team to the line of scrimmage. Extra blockers in the game for him. You know what's coming. The Generals crowd the line of scrimmage. Ely running off left tackle, and he's in for a touchdown. No secret what was coming. Randolph-Macon brought in Marcus Bazala as a lead blocker, as well as Justin DeLeon, and snapped it to Ely, and Ely with a 3-yard carry and then a 1-yard carry to put 6 points on the board for the Yellow Jackets. a 3-point game currently, and Chris Vidal will come in to attempt the extra point. The snap's a good one, the hold is down, and the kick is up, and it's good. So we are back to a 2-point contest. It is 28-26 with 3:17 to go in this contest. Randolph-Macon's defense has played Washington and Lee well. It's been the big play in the second half that has hurt Randolph-Macon, and there seems to be plenty of time left in the contest that I wouldn't expect to see an onside kick here. But if you're Washington and Lee, you almost have to put your hands team out there to ensure that if an onside kick is coming, you're able to recover the football. 3:17 to go in the contest. Both teams have 2 timeouts remaining. 28-26. Jack Pollard to Montgomery Owen has been most of the offense for Washington and Lee in the second half. And the Generals will send their hands team out there. On the field are Pollard, Lachlan, Drew Richardson, 3 quarterbacks. And Vidal will hit it deep. Alex Wirtz will have to track this one down, and he's lucky that it rolls into the end zone as Wirtz was standing at about the 20. If they kick it deep and it doesn't go into the end zone and Randolph-Macon wins the foot race down there, it could have been problematic for Washington and Lee. You may have heard the coach's box to my left screaming at Alex Wirtz to back up. They were right. But the Generals catch a break, and they will start on offense at the 25-yard line. Drew Richardson in at quarterback. And you have to expect Washington and Lee will look to run the football, and that's why Richardson is in. Keep the clock rolling. Kirkland comes in cross motion from the left slot back position. Handoff is to Josh Brees. He's into the clear at the 50, 45-40, 35-30, 25-20, 10-15, or 15-10, 5. Touchdown, Josh Brees. 2 plays on offense. 2 touchdowns for Josh Brees. What a story. What a game. The Randolph-Macon defense must have been confused as Drew Richardson was in at quarterback, and once Josh Brees got through the initial line of scrimmage, there was not a Yellow Jacket within 5 yards of him. And Washington and Lee is now back up by 8, 34-26. No rest for the defense. After this being a heavyweight title fight, a slow defensive game, it's been the offense for both teams here in the second half as Jarrett Wright connects on the extra point to make it a 9-point contest. It's 35-26 with 3:06 to play in regulation. I sort of feel bad for the Generals defense, folks, as they've been on the field battling the Yellow Jackets offense here in the second half. And the offense for Garrett LaRose and Bobby Jones, as well as the quarterback triumphant for the Generals, goes out for a play, maybe 2, and scores points. It's a great problem to have, but now the Washington and Lee defense will look to slow down the Yellow Jackets, who most certainly will be back in their up-tempo offense. Jarrett Wright to kick this one away. For the second straight kickoff, Trey Frederick back deep. Wright has the ball teed up on the far side hash. 6 players to his right. 4 players to his left. Frederick, the lone return man. Wright will angle the kick to Frederick's right, the Generals' left. Frederick will work towards the Generals' bench and is going to be tackled as he crossed the 20-yard line. It's number 97, Robert Poindexter, on the tackle, and a flag comes in after the fact as it looks like some extracurricular activity between Matthew Vergara and Poindexter. And if you're Randolph-Macon, you can't make those kind of mistakes. We'll see if it's on Poindexter for celebrating or Vergara for shoving Poindexter down. We'll go to our crowd mic.
After the play, dead ball, unsportsmanlike conduct, number 33 on the receiving team, return team. 15-yard penalty. And
so the penalty is on Vergara. A 15-yard penalty. Should be half the distance to the goal based on where the foul occurred.
Correction. Half the distance from the end of the run. First down, Randolph-Macon.
And so Randolph-Macon will start deeper in its own territory from the 13. And so with 3:01 left in regulation, Washington and Lee up by 9. The Yellow Jackets needing to march down the field and put points on the board. They don't need a touchdown here. They can kick a field goal and then look for the onside kick, but they do need 2 scores. The first-year Egbers back at quarterback. He hands to Frederick. Frederick will run forward for a gain of 3 out to the 16.
After he gets out to the 15-yard line.
Second down and 7 upcoming. 2 receivers to either side of the offensive formation for Randolph-Macon. Egbers from the shotgun. Frederick offset to his right. Egbers looks left, and it's intercepted by Riley Bartlett. Bartlett jumps up. The 5'10 defensive end jumps up and picks off the pass. What a play by Riley Bartlett. There is a flag down on the play, but what a athletic feat by Bartlett. The officiating crew circles up. Let's go to the crowd mic and see what the penalty is. It appears it will be on the Generals.
Not going to play. Encroachment on the defense. No 54. 5-yard penalty. Replay. Second down.
So encroachment called on Andrew Frailer. Bartlett with a tremendous athletic play. He'll have to do it again. A 5-yard penalty makes it second down and 2 upcoming for Randolph-Macon. Egbers from the gun, hands to Frederick. Frederick weaving his way through the offensive line, has a first down and more as he's across the 25, out across the 30, and brought down at the Randolph-Macon 33-yard line. The Yellow Jackets scramble to the line of scrimmage quickly. 1st and 10, 2 receivers to either side of the formation. Handoff is to Frederick. Frederick running off right tackle, and this time is gobbled up at the line of scrimmage.
Gets out to the 35-yard line, a pickup of a couple.
A 2-yard gain.
Second down and 8.
Brings up a second down and 8 as we go under 2:11 to play on the game clock. Frederick shifts from Egbers' left to his right. Egbers from the shotgun, shuffling in the pocket, throws to his right, and it's complete to Tim Hanratty. Hanratty lined up at the split end position, listed as a tight end in the program. Picks up about 6, brings up a 3rd down and 2. Egbers to the line of scrimmage, hands off to Frederick. Frederick with a big hole off the left side, and Frederick will have a first down and get into Washington and Lee territory as he crosses the 50 and is brought down at the Washington and Lee 48.
First down.
Randolph-Macon hurries to the line of scrimmage. 1st and 10 from the Generals 48, in between the hashes. Egbers back to pass. 3-step drop out of shotgun, throws deep downfield, looking for DeAndre Gill, and it's just out of the reach. A late flag comes in. Kyle Wood was in coverage. It didn't seem like the pass was catchable or that Wood really did anything. But the back judge throws the flag, and Wood can't believe it, nor can the Generals coaching staff. For that matter, nor can I. The pass was clearly overthrown. Nonetheless, it will be pass interference.
Going to play. Pass interference on the defense, number 23. 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
So a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down. Clock stopped at 1:25 to play. Generals up 35-26. Ball will be spotted at the Washington and Lee 33-yard line. 4 receivers set, 2 to either side of the formation. Frederick to the right side of Egbers, the first-year quarterback. Generals with 3 down linemen, they bring the blitz. Egbers stepping up in the pocket, throws the 12-yard stop route to the outside. It's complete to Hanratty, and Hanratty will have a first down for Randolph-Macon. Clock stops in college as they move the chains. As the ball is set, the clock begins to tick at 1:15 to go in regulation. Egbers from the shotgun. 3-step drop, throwing for the end zone. It's up for grabs. It pops out, and it's incomplete. Coming over was Dean Johnson, to knock the ball away as it was momentarily in the arms of Mike Avent, and Johnson jarred the ball loose. And so it's 2nd down and 10, ball at the Generals' 18-yard line. Clock stopped with 1:05 to play. Dean Johnson, a touchdown-saving hit, I should say. What an exciting game coming your way here on 91.5 FM WLUR Lexington. Egbers from the shotgun. 2 receivers to either side of the formation. The offense's wide side is the left side. Generals bring the pressure. Egbers throws left, and it's complete to Hanratty. He's inside the 10, brought down by Matt Dodson at the 7. Clock will stop, and now it starts rolling. Under a minute to go. 1st and goal for Randolph-Macon. Timeout called by Washington and Lee, stopping the clock with 55.3 seconds to play in regulation. Whew, catch your breath, folks. It's been a back-and-forth 4th quarter. It really started in the latter part of the 3rd quarter. As I've received a few messages, one Generals fan called this the Josh Brees comeback tour. 2 carries for over 100 yards. I think you can certainly call the second half the Josh Brees comeback tour. But it's also been the Washington and Lee defense, holding Randolph-Macon to field goals when they got inside the red zone, have allowed Washington and Lee to have a 9-point lead with 55.3 seconds to play. Montgomery Owen, well rested after sitting out the first half. 2 big touchdown receptions in this game as well, all happening in the second half. The Generals have been a different team in the second half. Four receiver set. Egbers on the quarterback draw, running to the left side. Egbers tackled by a leg. Will Corey, what a stop. Egbers got inside the 10. Or she should say he took the snap behind the 10 and got down to the 6. So Corey with a great tackle, and Randolph-Macon will now call timeout. It will be 2nd down and goal from the 6-yard line coming out of this timeout. This will be the longest minute of Washington and Lee Generals fans' lives, as we have 48.2 seconds to play in regulation. Washington and Lee has 1 timeout remaining. Randolph-Macon with 1 timeout remaining. Let's play through the scenarios. The Jackets need 2 scores. If they're unable to get a touchdown on the next play, or the next 2 plays, they'll kick the field goal and look for the onside kick. In any event, they'll have to go for the onside kick. A 9-point game puts it just out of the reach of a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Either way, the Jackets need points on this drive. 48.2 seconds to go. Egbers from the shotgun, throwing the fade route to the back corner of the end zone, and it's overthrown. He was looking for number 88, Nate Millar. And it brings up 3rd down and goal. The Generals have lost on a Hail Mary this season. That was against Emory and Henry. An unfortunate turn of events in that contest. You can tell that the coaching staff, as well as the players, learned from that game. The last offensive series, the Generals brought in Drew Richardson to just run the football, but Josh Brees decided he wanted to take it to the house. Now it's Egbers, 3rd down and goal for Randolph-Macon. From the shotgun, he'll roll to his right. Scrambling, still running, throwing back across, and it's complete in the end zone to number 82, Mike Avent, for the touchdown. A good defensive drive for Washington and Lee, but Randolph-Macon still able to put 6 points on the board, and it's currently a 35-32 game with 39.8 seconds to go. Chris Vidal on to attempt the extra point. His missed extra point from the first half haunts Randolph-Macon right now. This extra point is up and good.
Vidal's kick is up, and it's good.
A 2-point ball game.
35, your Yellow Jackets 33.
A 2-point ball game with 39.3 seconds to go, and the onside kick upcoming. What a game it's been, folks. If Vidal had made the extra point in the first half, he missed the extra point in the first half with 4:57 remaining after a DeAndre Gill 15-yard touchdown reception. If he had made that, the Yellow Jackets could have gone for 2 in that situation, and it could have been a tie game. Nonetheless, now the hands team for Washington and Lee back out on the field. There's a couple of different ways for Randolph-Macon to play this. The traditional end-over-end kick is what it appears Chris Vidal is getting set up to do. It's in the direction of 3 Washington and Lee quarterbacks, as well as Travis Dover, a defensive back for the Generals. It goes to the second line and hits off the Generals' foot, and Randolph-Macon recovers it. It bounced off of Alex Vaught's leg and is recovered by Randolph-Macon. The Yellow Jackets still have life. A terrible break for Washington and Lee. Vaught got caught in between on the hop. He should have gotten out of the way and let the ball go out of bounds. It was a rocket kick off of Vidal. Instead, it hits his right leg, squirts back across to Randolph-Macon, and the Yellow Jackets jump on it. 37.6 seconds to go. 37.6 seconds to go. You can hear the crowd getting into it. 4 wide receivers set for Randolph-Macon as they are back on offense, starting from the Yellow Jackets' 46-yard line. Going deep is their first-year quarterback, and he underthrows a wide-open David Wallace. In coverage for Washington and Lee was number 30, Andrew Browse, and Browse was beat.
David Wallace, that'll bring up second down.
Wallace was wide open, and Egbers underthrew him. The clock is stopped at 32.5 seconds. The Generals' defense was not organized there, and it almost cost them another game late in the ball game. For now, it stands at 35-33. Second down and 10 for Randolph-Macon. 4 wide receivers set. Egbers back to pass. 3-step drop, steps up in the pocket, scrambling to his right, throwing on the run, and it's caught. It's caught on the sideline by number 22, Trey Owens. Owens able to get a foot in bounds. He's out of bounds at the 34-yard line.
That's going to be good for the Yellow Jackets. First down.
Randolph-Macon threatening in field goal range, or close to field goal range for Chris Vidal. First and 10. 1 timeout remaining for Randolph-Macon. So if they are tackled in bounds, the Yellow Jackets are tackled in bounds, they do have that timeout. 4 wide receivers set. Egbers from the shotgun dumps it off to Frederick. Frederick running backwards and is going to be tackled by Benham at the 36-yard line. And Pedro Aruza on the field quickly to call timeout with 17.2 seconds to go. A loss of 1 on the reception. What a nail-biter, folks. 17.2 seconds to go in regulation. 35-33. Randolph-Macon scoring a touchdown on their last offensive possession, recovering the onside kick, and now attempting to put themselves in field goal range to win the contest and stay unbeaten in the ODAC. Could the Yellow Jackets be a team of destiny, or will the Generals play the role of spoiler today? We'll find out in 17.2 seconds of play. The Generals' offense has been great in the second half. The defense has been tested as Randolph-Macon has answered blow for blow with the Generals. Second down and 12 upcoming. Ball at the 36-yard line. The line judge blowing his whistle and coming in to talk to the referee. Now he'll call the other line judge in. Not sure what the discussion is. Second down and 12 at the 36. Yellow Jackets out of timeouts. The Generals with 1 timeout remaining. Tim Hanratty will come onto the field late to replace David Wallace. He'll line up at the right split end position. Egbers from the shotgun. He'll drop back to pass. The Generals with a push up front. Egbers scrambling to his right, throwing on the run. It's caught by Hanratty at the 20. He's inbounds.
The pass is complete.
The clock will stop because the official fell down. Now Randolph-Macon will spike the football. The clock is stopped with 7.4 seconds to go. What a play by Presley Egbers to step up into the pocket and find Hanratty inbounds, but with enough for the first down. And now Chris Vidal will have a chance to be the hero. The field goal unit comes on. It will be a 38-yard field goal from the far side hash. Right-footed kicker Vidal, the junior. And the Generals call timeout to ice the kicker with 7.4 seconds to go.
Washington Lee, their third and final toss timeout ahead.
There may still be a couple of seconds left on the game clock after this kick. But for Washington and Lee, you can feel the knot in the stomach. An opportunity to beat a team that has been dominant in the ODAC for the past 2 years may be slipping through their fingers. But the Generals, on defense, on special teams, a chance to put a push, rush a kick, block a kick. Vidal is a good kicker, but he has missed one extra point today. No timeouts remaining for either team. 35-33, Washington and Lee. Vidal, a 38-yard field goal from the far side hash. The snap's a bit low. It's bobbled. The kick is up. And it's good. It's good. Vidal puts Randolph-Macon on top. 36-35. Flags do fly after the play. Flags do fly. 2.8 seconds do remain on the game clock. A lot of extracurricular activity. Vidal, who had not been the kicker prior to this week, bangs home a 38-yard field goal to give the Jackets a 36-35 lead.
After the play, big goal on sportsmanlike conduct, number 69 on defense. That 50 approach will be added on the kickoff.
Unsportsmanlike penalty called on Washington and Lee. And now the Generals will need a miracle. A lot of ball handlers out on the field for Washington and Lee. As this will be a game that will be tough for the Generals faithful to stomach. Montgomery Owen coming out onto the field as him and Alex Wirtz strategize on how to get a kickoff return for a touchdown. Just 2.8 seconds remaining in regulation. If the Generals lose, this will be a heartbreaking loss. They had an opportunity. Randolph-Macon executed everything flawlessly. The Yellow Jackets, because of the Phil Davis penalty, will get the kickoff from the 50-yard line. Expect for Chris Vidal to hit a squib kick here, as the Generals will have to be smart in how they field the football. Instead, Vidal does the unthinkable and kicks the ball out the back of the end zone. It gives Washington and Lee a chance on offense. I think they would have rather had a chance on offense than special teams. So not sure what the coaching staff for the Yellow Jackets was thinking there. But nonetheless, the Generals offense will come out onto the field. A chance for a trick play, something special to try to win this ball game. The Yellow Jackets will be playing extreme prevent defense. The two deep safeties standing back at the Randolph-Macon 30-yard line. Pollard in the ball game. Laughlin's in the game as well. Montgomery Owen, he's at the wide receiver position to the left side. And now a flag comes in. And it looks like the Generals may be penalized for delay of game. So a 5-yard penalty isn't really going to matter much, as the Generals took more time to try to get organized, as Washington Lee needs a miracle here. Just 3 down linemen for Randolph-Macon. Pollard from the shotgun. He'll drop back to pass. Rolls to his left, now back to his right. Looking for a block. And now we'll throw on the run. It's complete to Kirkland. Kirkland throws it up, and it's recovered by Randolph-Macon. A heartbreaking loss for Washington and Lee. By the score of 36-35, an eligible receiver was called on the last play. Downfield, the penalty, of course, is declined. And Randolph-Macon is going to stay unbeaten in the ODAC as they defeat Washington and Lee 36-35. We'll take a timeout and come back to wrap this one up. Once again, Randolph-Macon wins 36-35. Stay with us for post-game coverage. This is Washington and Lee University football on 91.5 FM, WLUR Lexington. Live streaming today on WLUR All Access, powered by First Team Broadcasting.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back live one final time to Day Field on the campus of Randolph-Macon College here in Ashland, Virginia. A heartbreaking loss for Washington and Lee as the Generals fall to the Randolph-Macon College Yellow Jackets by the score of 36-35. This broadcast of Washington and Lee football has been brought to you in part by the Washington and Lee University Store. Celebrate your favorite Generals team with a sports tee, decal, or hat. If you can think of it, we probably have it. The store is open 7 days a week and is owned and operated by W&L. All proceeds go back to the Washington and Lee community, helping to fund athletic, alumni, and student programs. Order online anytime at store.wlu.edu, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for exclusive online promotions. Go Generals. Well, what can be said, folks? This was a back-and-forth game, particularly in the second half. At halftime, it was 13-7 in favor of Randolph-Macon. But from that point forward, it was big play city for Washington and Lee. Montgomery Owen got the scoring started in the second half with a 66-yard touchdown reception off the arm of Jack Pollard. Chris Vidal struck back for Randolph-Macon with 12:11 to play in the fourth quarter with a 25-yard field goal, the first of his two 25-yard field goals. Then Montgomery Owen answered with a 75-yard touchdown reception off the arm of Jack Pollard, a two-play 83-yard drive that made it 21-16. As I mentioned, Vidal had two 25-yard field goals. His second one came with 6:47 to go in the fourth quarter. Not to be outdone by his teammate Montgomery Owen, Josh Brees decided to get into the act. With 6:34 to go in the fourth, Josh Brees with a 75-yard touchdown run. That made the score 28-19 in favor of the Generals. Randolph-Macon drove back an 11-play, 67-yard drive that took 3 minutes and 10 seconds, capped off by an Andrew Ely 1-yard touchdown run, a Tim Tebow-like touchdown run to make it 28-26. Josh Brees said, I can do another 75-yard sprint. One play, 75 yards, Josh Brees made it 35-26. And then Randolph-Macon, with 39 seconds to go in the contest, able to cap off an 11-play, 88-yard drive that took 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Mike Avent caught a 6-yard touchdown pass from the first-year quarterback Presley Egbers. And then Randolph-Macon recovered an onside kick, almost the unthinkable, and then marched down the field, 6 plays, 33 yards, to set up a 38-yard field goal from Chris Vidal. Vidal had missed an extra point in the first half, but ultimately he is the hero today for Randolph-Macon. It's a story of time of possession, folks. You heard it from Jim Plantholt in our pregame. He said that time of possession would determine the game, and I firmly believe that the Generals' defense during the last few series in the fourth quarter was exhausted, because Randolph-Macon had the football for 42 minutes and 30 seconds today. Washington and Lee only had the football for 17 minutes and 30 seconds. Randolph-Macon ran 95 plays on offense for 502 yards. Washington and Lee, 40 plays for just 450 yards. The Generals did run the ball effectively, 30 carries as a team for 270 yards, led on the day by Josh Brees. 8 carries for 195 yards. Of course, those two 75-yard touchdown runs significantly contributed to that. It was also great to see Drew Richardson back on the field for Washington and Lee. 3 carries, 28 yards, and that 22-yard touchdown run in the first half. Kobe Kirkland with 6 carries for 24 yards. Jack Pollard also threw the ball quite well, particularly in the second half. 5 of 10 passing for the sophomore quarterback for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, those 2 touchdowns to Montgomery Owen. Owen with 3 catches on the day for 150 yards. The Generals, played pretty disciplined today. 5 penalties for 50 yards. Randolph-Macon also played disciplinedly. Two penalties for just 17 yards. But ultimately, it's Randolph-Macon with the victory today. Their Hall of Fame game here, and they stay unbeaten in the conference. Randolph-Macon is now 7-1 overall, 6-0 in the ODAC. Washington and Lee falls to 4-4, 3-3 in the conference. Randolph-Macon continues their march for a second straight ODAC crown. They will square off next week against Bridgewater on the road at Jobson Field. Washington and Lee returning home to Wilson Field for a 1 p.m. kickoff. We'll call it the Battle of Route 60 as they square off against Southern Virginia, the newest ODAC member. Well, special thanks to Tony Wong, our board operator today at WLUR, for spinning the dials and sending us out across the miles, as well as for the entire pregame team at WLUR. Ben Greer, Jeremy Franklin, and the rest of the crew, as well as Jim Plantholt with First Team Broadcasting. Your final score, once again, from Day Field on the campus of Randolph-Macon. Randolph-Macon College 36, Washington and Lee 35. I'm Andy McEnroe signing off and wishing you a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next week with live video and audio coverage of Washington and Lee football on WLUR and the Generals Sports Network.